We will call to order the CRA Board meeting Tuesday, June 13, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. Would everyone please rise by an invocation from Mayor Woodrow Hay, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Loving and gracious Lord, of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all of your blessings. We thank you for the privilege to serve. We ask that you bless this CRA Board of the great city of Boynton Beach. Allow matters of business to be conducted decently and in order, and that it would be pleasing in your sight. We are grateful for the many men and women that serve this great city. Guide our hearts and our mind. Dear Lord, in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech, import your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our decisions may be reached a successful conclusion. Thank you, Lord, for being our source of guidance. We ask it all in your holy and righteous name. And all the people of God said, Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman.
Here.
Vice Chair Cap.
Here.
Here.
Present.
Here.
All right, thank you. Regarding the agenda, we have a revised agenda with old business item I, which we'd like to move ahead of item A. And in addition, I would like to speak.
What is item I?
Item I is the resolution, discussion and consideration of budget amendment to Resolution 17-01 for Town Square project funding. So we are going to have a resolution of what we decided last night. In addition, I'd like to discuss item D of old business before C regarding, so that we can discuss the tax incremental revenue funding agreement for the Ocean One project before the purchase and development agreement. A motion as amended.
So moved as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Agenda has been approved as amended. Legal?
Nothing.
Okay. Moving on to informational items and disclosures by board members and CRA staff. Vice Chair Katz, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I met with representatives of the Centennial Group in reference to Ocean Breeze East, and that's it.
Board Member McCray?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to disclose that I met with Ocean Breeze and also Centennial. Also like to disclose I did not meet with St. John and Brownstone. I'd like to also let it be stated for the record, if I vote on St. John tonight, the record will speak that I have nothing to gain and nothing to lose. I have disclosed.
I met with Sharon Merchant and Centennial. I did meet with the Myers Group, who withdrew. A few months ago, I did meet with St. John's and Roundstone and received emails from representatives of St. John. I went to visit Troy's Barbecue, who is on the agenda for a grant. And I did attend the Sarah Sims event for the CRA. I have not met with Ocean One or New Rock. Board Member Romulus.
Good evening, everyone. I've only met with the Myers Group, who has since pulled out of consideration, and that is all I have to disclose at the time.
Board Member Costello.
I have met with St. John's, I've met with New Rock, and the Myers Group, which has pulled out.
So are we all listing all of the groups that we all met with since this started, or are we just...
I just said since the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, since the last meeting.
Okay.
Ever since it started.
All right.
Want to be covered.
Any more informational items? Seeing none, moving on to announcements and awards, movies in the park, music on the rocks.
Good evening, Mercedes Coppin, Special Events Coordinator. Our final Movies in the Park event was scheduled for June 2nd, but unfortunately, due to rainy weather, the event was canceled. The new season of Movies in the Park will start on October 6th. Our last Music on the Rocks event was on May 19th and featured the Jeff Harding Band. We had a fairly decent turnout with about 200 people attending that event. The final Music on the Rocks event of this season will be Friday, June 16th. Music will be provided by the School of Rock of the Palm Beaches. These talented students will be playing cover songs of Michael Jackson and the Beatles. Food and drinks will be available for purchase from the food truck invasion vendors and the mobile bar service starting at 6 p.m. And the concert runs from 7 to 10 p.m. Thank you.
And I forgot that I had one more announcement, that our fireworks event is going to be held on July 1st at 6 p.m., not July 4th. So please let everyone know that it is on Saturday, July 1st. The point of it being on Saturday is so that we can have it as a family-friendly event with people not having to wake up early the next morning to go to work. Moving on to consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to public comments. Please note, the audience will be limited to 3 minutes for items not on the agenda. So if you have an item on the agenda, we will let you discuss after the presentation. Peter?
Hello, everybody. Hello, the whole community.
Hello.
I wanted to
Please state your
just say
name
a
and
few-
address for the record.
Oh, Peter Guillaume, 305 Southwest 5th Ave, Boynton Beach, Florida, 33435. Yeah, I just wanted to say, just a few comments. I was trying to figure out from the last time we talked exactly how to best bring a better proposal in a way to bring a better appearance about it. And I was wondering if I was to be able to be a little bit more illuminating and elusive in the way I'm supposed to direct my developments and direction that I've been working with the whole commission and CRA. If I was supposed to change my direction and be a little bit more apparent to what y'all want, and if I was to be able to exactly run the business that I'm trying to establish in Boynton the way y'all would want to see it, would I still be able to accomplish the community initiatives and things that I want to do for the community if I was able to work with y'all on what y'all trying to do? Would this be something that would balance out what the community and the officials are trying to do? Is this something that's possible?
I mean, the easy answer is yes. But
Yes?
to work together with the commission is what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Yes. Is there anything in specifically that you'd like to work on?
Well,
That's not on the agenda.
there's a lot of things that have been specifically spoken, but nothing has been yet connected. So I just wanted to see, in a simple way, is that still something that's in the thought of the officials?
I think what you would need to do is, as you noted on the informational items, we talked about having meetings with people who are on the agenda. So I would suggest you schedule a meeting with all the people on the board here for the things that you would like to move forward with.
Oh, okay. Well, another comment, because it was relating towards the people that's here. If I was to be a little bit more appealing to y'all.
I'm sorry, but you can't discuss to the people. It's only to us.
Okay. Well, I don't think the community would still try to build with me on the direction I've been trying to go if I just become more appealing towards what they're trying to do. Because recently, the last couple of months, even a year now, it's really something that's been held up, and a lot of things are going on that haven't been moving. So for me to really make a progress in this, I have to figure out how to please the officials and all these people that's in on it with y'all. So I don't want to waste my time. So I'm asking y'all, is this something, if I continue to go down this direction and actually try to make it appealing to y'all, And to the people in the community that's with y'all on this type of stuff, like, will it be balanced out? Will it be a fair resolution that we are here to work with?
Peter, let me go ahead and address that. First of all, we do hear what you're saying when you come to the commission meeting, when you come to the CRA meeting. But one thing we have to let you know and understand is that government works differently than daily operations. But what you bring to us, we hear, we listen. But it's a lot of times that we just can't find the funding. We cannot move forward. But trust me, we're glad that you are a young person here jumping up and saying this is what you want. And tonight you're going to find out that we're still looking for funding for some things. And I need you to stay here so that you can kind of like support what I'm going to be saying.
Yeah, I see my minutes ran up. And
Don't worry about your minutes. Keep talking. I'm just saying because I need to hear what you're trying to say.
okay, and well, this comes to where I'm at right here with this. If what we've been trying to do every time there's money allocated, like all these last couple of years, and it's all disappeared and we got to refine it, then this thing's not gonna move. So I need a better solution to work with y'all, or we need to create a new situation. Because the last commission I was here,
right,
you know, one of y'all officials mentioned to me the ship that I'm riding with, it sunk a long time ago. So, you know, the last ship I was on was like, you know, something that's still previously here.
Thank you for your comments.
That's like, huh?
Thank you for your comments. Your time is up.
Well, he told me I could still talk, so I didn't
Peter,
finish asking questions.
Peter, what I would suggest is just reach out to us individually and try to get your point across to us so that you can basically say what you want to say. Because right now it seems a little vague, and you're trying to.
It is fake because nobody's
so
really.
we don't really know what you're saying, and I think it just comes across that there's a disconnect. So I would suggest sending out an email to each of us, meet with us, see where we are, see where you want to go, and let's all build a plan together that can kind of work for the community as a whole. I believe that that's what you're trying to accomplish, and I think that would save us all time and frustration, right?
Well, I don't think me doing the same thing I've been doing is going to work. But
thank you, Peter.
Right.
I guess I'll take that recommendation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jeannie Hevlin, president of Greater Boynton Beach Sister Cities. We have an opportunity to host a traveling sauna, real sauna here in Boynton Beach, to celebrate Finland's centennial year and our new relationship with Roma, Finland. We're proposing a citywide event themed around Finnish culture. This would give the citizens of Boynton Beach a taste of a very important part of Finnish culture. We've already requested assistance from the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be working with Finlandia House in Lantana. We really would like to partner with the City of Boynton Beach and the CRA, for the location, event marketing, planning, and possibly some financial assistance. And you have just received some handouts that give a pretty good explanation of the sauna. This would be on either Saturday, November 18th, or Sunday, November 19th. We have to select the date. Finlandia House in Lantana will take the date that we don't. We have first dibs, so I'd like your guidance on that. We'd like to have it at the Intracoastal Park. We think that'd be a great location. And this is a real sauna that can accommodate 4 to 5 people at a time to experience the real thing. We would be one of 56 locations across the country that would be hosting this during Finland's centennial year. So the cost would be about $500 for food, lodging, expenses for the 2 men who travel with it across the country. We would also need to provide utilities, water, drainage, firewood. I have no idea where to get firewood. And they've requested a power outlet if possible. The traveling sauna will charge a nominal fee for people to experience it. Their finding is that no pay, no show, so they charge between $5 and $15. They will also be selling souvenirs, and we would negotiate a percentage of that back to us. So we'd love to do this. We'd love your support and your partnership. We think it'll be fun, educational, and definitely very different for Boynton Beach. So I'd appreciate any comments and your consideration. And I guess for a vote, you would have to put this on a future agenda?
So we are going to be discussing next year's budget, which this would fall under. Whether the CRA can spend the funding for it, we'll discuss. And also, you want to get a lot of the city help as well. So this is something that that this board will work with the city so that we can accomplish this. I know that I'm for it. And, coming back from Finland in July, I'd like to, explain, my experiences with the sauna so that other people can know what other cultures and lifestyles are like.
And the
So-
financial assistance the financial piece of it is very small. We really need the marketing and the cooperation.
Okay, yeah. We look forward to working with you.
Any of you have questions? No? Thank you.
Seeing no more public comments, moving on to item I. Discussion and consideration of budget amendment to Resolution 17-01 for Town Square project funding.
Good evening, Board Chair and Board members. Michael Simon, Interim Executive Director of the CRA. This item is in response to the Board's action last evening at the special meeting concerning the allocation of funding in this year's budget for the Town Square Phase 1 services project and agreement. The Board approved the funding in the amount of $2,100,000 for that project. The funding was from two internal accounts, the general fund and the project fund. So in order to move money from and in between these funds, a resolution tracking that accounting move is required, and that is Resolution 1701 for your approval.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Resolution passes. Moving on to item A, discussion and consideration of the budget for full year 2017 to 2018.
Good evening again, Board. As discussed in previous meetings, we would like to take this opportunity to go through the CRA's budget for projects and the project fund for next fiscal year, which begins October 1st of 2017 and ends September 30th, 2018. I have in front of you your budget sheets, but on the screen this evening for you and the audience, you can see here that in the yellow highlighted column is the projection of TIF increment revenue for next year as qualified through the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's Office and the city. Our revenues are up 8.4% over last year, which is an excellent indication that both the CRA and the city are doing good works, and the economy appears to be headed in the right direction as of now. The total increment revenue that we are expected to receive for next year is $11,426,469. That comes in as revenue. We also anticipate, as we do in normal annual conditions, $1 million in revenue from the marina, which is generally offset by a similar amount in expenses. So it's a little bit better than a break even, but for budgeting purposes, this is how we've established the marina operations. If you go down and a little bit there, your next category of funding gets into the expenses regarding your debt and operating expenses. You can see there that we have your debt service, which is your obligated debt, your administrative, operating, marketing, projects, professional services within the general fund, your marina expenses, and the total expenses at the bottom line there are $5,336,624. The next group of numbers that you see in your budget, this is the same budget every year as far as the categories go. You have the category of tax increment revenue funding agreements. These are the agreements that you have entered into previously, or previous boards that have obligated the CRA to fund these projects meeting particular goals annually on an audit report or some type of a report that they provide staff and is approved by the board for funding and a portion of their tax increment revenue that they generate on their project. Currently, we are obligated annually for next year of $1,327,000 in the total of our tax increment payments and agreements. And currently, you can see there that we have we're under obligation for 5 agreements, with 500 Ocean being the 6th agreement, and that funding won't kick in until next year if they receive their CO before December 31st of this year and make the tax rolls in January of 18. So that leaves us with our project category, which we'd like to do this evening. It sets us with a July and August meeting date to revisit the allocation of the project fund amount there on your screen, which is $5,362,845. And this is now based on actions last evening with regard to the very successful negotiation on our Phase 1 and the Town Square project funding obligation now of the $2,500,000. You'll see we've already put that into the lines of your project area. This is a number that, based on your actions last evening, we need to set aside in the event that the city and the CRA as a partner move forward with the Phase 2 portion of the Town Square project, which we certainly hope that we do. So you have in front of you a live spreadsheet that we've talked about now, and I'm excited to go through. This gives the public and yourselves an opportunity to allocate funding as you see fit to either items or projects that exist. I've tried to include some projects that maybe have been mentioned throughout the year that had some discussion from the board, and am happy to provide any input that I can. But this is a board-directed budget. Obviously, all of these items are in compliance with the CRA plan and the goals and the objectives stated under statute for the CRA. And if there are any new that are introduced and you are questioning what those might be in relationship to those requirements, we're happy to answer that. But again, we just started out with the Town Square. So your balance for allocation is $2,800,062. So if the board would like to begin to offer suggestions or direct staff in any way you'd like.
All right. I had a question about this in the sense is that you are subtracting, in 2018 and 19, the $570,000 for 500 Ocean, but we are not including the 100% of that in next year's in the future revenue. So it only looks like we're gaining $250,000 in revenue, where in fact we'll be gaining $1 million because of the 75% of the TIF goes to 500 Ocean.
Board Chair, in the chart that we have, if we show our payout to 500 Ocean in next year's, the year after, the upcoming year, which is 18-19.
Right.
So we are not obligated to, we don't collect the TIF, and we would not be paying it, so it would not come out of your current project budget.
I'm understanding the tax incremental revenue of 3%.
Yes, sir.
So we are subtracting the 570, even though we are not including the TIF benefit of that project. So it looks like we're making a lot less in 2018 and 19, when in fact we should be making more, because it's not a subtraction. It's only 75% of the future revenue. I don't know if anybody else sees this or it's just me.
You're looking for the other 25%, correct?
Well, that's the thing of the total tax incremental revenue. You can't subtract 570 off the 3%. So these numbers look a little bit skewed for the future, but we'll discuss it in 2017 and 18. So I guess before we finalize, make sure that we include the extra 100% of 500 Ocean in the tax incremental revenue if we're subtracting it in the future.
Okay.
Regarding the projects, it seems that we have 386,000 left over in 2017 and 18, minus what is already allocated. Is that correct? Or no? I have a different spreadsheet. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got the where there's 2 million for the town square. Yeah. So, Michael, why don't you go through what you have proposed for everything and see what we agree and disagree with?
Yes, sir. A project that has had some discussion, much discussion, and the CRA staff has been involved along with city staff in exploring the existing conditions around Sarah Sims Park and the discussion of future park improvements in the heart of Boynton neighborhood. One of your items in a future agenda item this evening is discussion of Sarah Sims Park. Staff has been working, as I said, with the city staff on how can we add improvement value to the current conditions of the park, matching funds, kind of stretching the dollar in the short term. And the city has some funding in their CIP budget in the amount of about $740,000. And I am suggesting that we should think about perhaps matching that in the amount of around $600,000 and providing about $1.3 million for improvements to the park, such as lighting, fencing, irrigation, improvement to the restroom, walkways, at this point grass. Just there's a whole lot of things that can be done for the park that will provide, I think, an instant feeling of just cosmetic lift and an energy into the greening. The community, at the community meeting at both the CRA Board and at the Carolyn Sims Center, were very adamant that their feeling about the existing condition of the park was very much a frustration and something that they felt needed improvement as far as the city and the CRA, something to be proud of. It wasn't really a discussion of what things in the park aren't there that they wanted, other than what I really heard was it is just a neglected area of their community, of the city overall, and it was less about a new basketball court or a different basketball court, but something that had energy and life put into it, that had color and lighting and was safe, and it was an activity center that they could go to, bringing examples of Intercoastal Park and JC Park to mind for the staff to consider. So, the cities, after that meeting, city staff and I got together, and we just feel like for that $1.3 million, we can get, without having to redesign the park and go through all of this extra expense of construction and design, at least in the short term, that this would be an excellent way to provide a spark to the park and the community. We, as you know, are investing millions of dollars in that neighborhood in the heart of Boynton. The Model Block Project is across the street from this Sarah Sims Park. Ocean Breeze West is a block away. Family Dollar is across the street. There are lots of things, and I think that would benefit immediately from an impactful project like this. The board can decide if that's something you want to support, and then how we proceed in years going out, whether it be augmented or we see the result of this project if you approve it, and then decide from there how much further to go into it.
Yep. All right. Board Member McCray.
Thank you, Michael. I thank you for your presentation, but I find it kind of mind-boggling. I'm just saying, when we had money set aside for Sarah Sims for years and years and years, and come up to almost time for us to start seeing something come out the ground, look like the money came off the paper. And I'm just saying, $600,000. I'm in favor of that because we have promised it citizens in District 2 and this city that we want a park that we're going to be proud of, and we're still going to request that you all leave the $600,000 in. The city want to match it to come up to $700,000. I'm in favor of it. We do need to do something at that park besides let it look like it has nothing but weeds and we have nothing to be proud of.
Okay.
Michael, question. So the city is going to throw in 740,000. We'll throw in 600,000. That's 1.3 million dollars for Sarah Sims.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know at one time there was some talk about taking a piece of that park there and putting housing. Is that included in this proposal?
In the proposal that's being presented to you this evening, housing is not a contemplation with regard to these improvements. It was of the surveys and of the input we got at the Carolyn Sims Center meeting and at the CRA Board meeting, the public at this time is not in favor of portioning out a section of the park to prepare for housing. There is, and I think we can substantiate that there are considerable amounts of vacant land still available for housing. If this were a need and this was the last place to add housing, I think the answer might be different. But given that there are lands available at this time, the priority, I think we'd all agree, would like to be on those lands. And we certainly, as CRA staff, and I know the city is working hard, we're all working with Palm Beach County Housing Authority to try to get some of those lands developed. That might be Ocean Breeze East, might be the Cottage District, the acres of land that are behind in Cherry Hill. So any improvements, any kind of cosmetic enhancements that would be done to the park under the city and the CRA plan that's in front of you now would not put any permanent improvement over the area that may or may not in the future change its mind. So we would not be building a structure that we would lose value in. It would be grass improvements, irrigation, fencing, but not any kind of substantial structure or anything like that, if that was what you were
So that's
thinking.
something we can talk about in the future if we need to.
And
Yes, sir.
And I think it's on the agenda tonight to discuss it. All right. Seeing no more comments, I think I'll agree with Board Member McCray of 600,000.
And again, these, that's great, thank you. And these numbers are fluid, so I want to loosen up a little bit about it. If you have different opinions, you want to add, subtract. The other item that I wanted to suggest was about $125,000 with a match into the cities. Again, CIP, they have money available on the Boynton Beach Boulevard extension east of Federal Highway. As you enter into Pete's Pond area and the marina, the planters that were originally built back in the 2004-05 CRA bond to provide the road work needed to build Casa Costa and Marina Village. These raised planters, brick planters, were the kind of the in thing then and the design concept. But unfortunately, over time, they have proven to be the wrong 3D planter in the wrong space. So consequently, damage from vehicles trying to parallel park there for years has been occurring. And the intent of the project from the city standpoint was to make a change to those planters. We have had discussions, many meetings about the upcoming Ocean One project and potential hotel in the future on the site of the Bank of America. And all of the activities that are going on within the downtown and Marina District. And I feel like there's an opportunity while the city is addressing those planters that perhaps we can add additional parking through some reworking of the spaces. There's a roundabout at the end of that drive that's on the screen now that is a very, very large cement circle with plant material that you cannot park in effectively and has been really a no parking zone. I think it's a good opportunity to gain about 16 or 18 parking spaces for the public in that area that would provide space for, again, the marina activities, any kind of commercial activities in the new Ocean One project or in Casa Costa. It's not a substantial amount, but I think the improvements that will make landscape and lighting-wise to the existing hazard, if you will, from the city perspective of cars constantly being damaged and letters being sent to the city and then having to repair the wall. That alone is a reason that the city found to address it. I think we can partner and make it a bigger project. So that would be a placeholder that I would suggest you consider. Another consideration would be our special events. I know that that's something that the CRA Board and even the City Commission at their meetings has taken great pride in, and in a strategic planning effort have identified these types of activities as creating a sense of community and space. And I think, again, with the projects we're doing in the plan, this is a good complement. But they're expensive, and as years go out, there will be some additional tightening. But that would be a placeholder again. If you feel like we can save some funding, and if we're down to 20 or 30,000 here or there, I'm happy to find ways to identify those additional funds in those minor ways. I think if we hit the big ones first, it would be good.
Michael, what did we pay last year for special events? What was the total for that?
Want to get to that item? Or, yeah, that's a separate item.
Separate item, okay.
So do
We
you
can
want to
wait.
discuss that
Yep.
as well? So it looks like we spent 700, where is it? 413,000.
Well, there's
What's the justification for that increase?
That was my question.
Yes, that's very good. That's reasonable. What has happened under my interim directorship is looking at funding that has been kept in several different, for just accounting reasons or project reasons. There might be in the special events line item, the marketing was not necessarily included for all the events. It was in the marketing line item. Or you will see an increase in the pirate event of about 36,000 just in management services from an outside event management company. The event has grown to a portion of attendance in the 80,000 attendance range, and it is, for a staff of 2, it is really an impossibility. And we entertained last year a management company for about $15,000, found good benefit in it, but it was a late start. So we'd like to take advantage of some additional help. It's labor, it's planning, it's vendor management. Those types of things would come into play. That's part of the additional money. Vicki has the event sheet that we can also pull up and go through that, if you can.
I think just an explanation.
Yeah, not the event.
Okay.
I don't think we need the
Okay.
presentation, yeah.
Let's stay there.
Well, sorry, you also have that special events grant of $20,000 is in there.
But some of that increase comes from combining other line items or taking.
Some of them, yes, and some of them, the pirate event has gone up, the percentage of which I don't have in front of me, but we can certainly see those
Go
numbers
back
there.
to the screen we had before.
Okay.
Thank you.
How much of that increase do you think, just estimate, is pure increase versus shifting of funds from other line items to this?
75% of it. Really, when you start, you have increases from vendors that are coming from last year's contracts. You have new realizations of more generators needed, more lighting towers needed, the different tents and the different costs. Every year we learn something. My goal this year and last year was to make the event a smarter event, a more kind of oiled machine event, and less trying to get new things. Just let's make it a safe, very family-friendly event, a very successful one. I think everybody's been very pleased with the years of growth and the activities there. But it is becoming a very much a signature event, to the Sunfest type numbers of people. So your police numbers come up. You have 2 CERT carts now instead of 1. The event stretches, as you know, from Federal Highway to Seacrest. Vendors and expenses just keep expanding to provide that. And again, the event manager, that's a $15,000 increase over last year. But again, there's some areas there that you could save in if you wanted to pull back on a movie, month, you could save 1,000 here, 1,000 there. You could take 20,000 out if you didn't want to fund the community special events program. That's also another potential savings. We've had some discussion on that application and the difficulties you've had over the years of trying to approve those within the confines of that type of a grant with nonprofits or for-profits. And you currently have assigned the CRA Board with the task of looking at that grant and seeing if there's ways to improve it and provide you direction and recommendation on how that can be done. Again, if you get down into the nitty-gritty of dollars for things that need funding, I can go through ways of things that we can, I've been really working very closely with staff on this budget and really trying to identify things that we can live with, live without, add things that are going to make it a better experience for the public.
Vicki, could you go back to the line item for the special events grant, please, so we can see all the different things that are involved in that?
Thank you.
Michael, also, we do have a lot of items on the agenda, so can you, instead of going into a lot of depth, just give us the line items, what you think
High
we should
level?
look at, high
Okay.
level? That way, when the CRA Advisory Board makes recommendations on what we do, because we are going to look at this again in July, is that
Yes, sir,
correct?
July and August, and again, finally in September.
So, yeah, let's,
Very
instead
good.
of the in-depth explanation for each one, let's just do it at the high level.
Okay, great.
And that way we can move through this, because we are going to discuss it in the future.
Okay, super. So if when Vicki goes back to the other spreadsheet, so there's another item on the agenda this evening, if you so choose to acquire the Women's Club, the Boynton Women's Club. I'm trying to put a funding source there that we would use of $100,000 for historic preservation grant applications or any type of project work we're going to need to do with that building in the upcoming year. I'd rather be prepared now. The professional services line item.
Wait a minute, please don't.
Of course.
I know the mayor asked you to kind of move on, but I just want to, about the women's club, if we're moving ahead a little bit on the agenda.
We are.
It says that there's $110,000 to if we actually decide to purchase that. Where's that money coming from?
That would come from this year's acquisition fund.
Oh, okay, so it
Acquisition line
wouldn't
item.
affect 17, 18. Got it.
No,
Okay,
ma'am.
Keep going.
All trying to stay with new money. We're not going to talk about rollover or any kind of topic like that this evening. Our professional services line item, this is project contingencies, architectural services, site work, not site work and demolition, but there's a line item for, if Vicki will go to that real quickly, $564,000. And then you get into your neighborhood policing line item.
Stay right there. Neighborhood policing.
Yes, sir.
We have 2 officers already in District 2. We stated that we would be increasing it to 2 more officers. When it comes to this and we look at the city budget, I think that the city need to pay for those 2 new officers and don't keep banging on the CRA. I will discuss it further when we get there.
Okay.
So we have, for the current 2 officers, the $275,000 is there.
Board Member McCray, you said you'd like to speak?
Yes. My take is that when it comes to the neighborhood policing unit, we have promised that 2 officers is not enough. We would like to increase that when we get to the city budget, and I'd like for it to come out of the city budget. We are taxing the CRA with enough that we are not really supposed to be, and when I get to some more, I will stop you again. So I'm looking for that to come from the city coffers.
All right, thank you.
The next items that you are currently funding is the community outreach coordinator. If you'd
I'd
like
like to make a comment.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. The reason I'm going to be in favor of this only for this year because the person who we're funding is really a code enforcement officer who's already was funded by the city prior. This is his job, and I don't feel like we need to be picking up a tab when we don't need to pick up one. I will discuss it when we come to city budget.
Okay. So we will skip that and move next to Director of Economic and Development.
If again, that's an item that is in your current budget, if that is an item that you want to fund, you can decide that this evening, as you did with the police and the community outreach coordinator. The site work and demolition line item, there maybe funding
Michael,
left.
excuse me, let me go back and address that. I'm not in favor of funding this individual. This individual works at the discretion really of the city, and I'm just saying, as the Director of Economic Development, we are wasting money. This man is making more money, almost as more money than you, sir, and I'm just saying, I don't think it's right. I'm sorry. I cannot go along with that. We
All right.
discuss it when we come to the city budget.
All right, well, as the CRA, I disagree. I think that the level of David Scott's experience, however, whether the 50,000 is something that we could reduce, maybe to 25,000 is something that would be up for discussion. But I'd like to keep it at 50,000 now and have the CRA Board weigh in on it on the 1st of the month. Yes.
I'm comfortable keeping it partially funded by the CRA, in large part because I imagine that the bulk of his work will be done on this side of the city, and a good portion of that will be done within the CRA. So I think to me, it makes sense that the CRA shoulder a portion of that burden.
Let me make another comment. Since we're making comments,
Yep.
I'm not in favor of doing this. Why? First of all, this man has no office except where they can make a phone call. He has no employees who he's responsible to. He has no budget, and I'm going to be honest, this is just wrong. And I'm sorry. You all can say whatever you want to. This guy come at the will of his own work when he feel like it. And when I asked for a report, he gave me one line. That is not a report. It's not acceptable. And I will discuss it when we come to the city budget. I don't care how you feel. It's not that.
Excuse me, but I disagree, and we'll move on.
Well, we're going to disagree.
We have moved the community workshop and events line item from the project fund into the general fund so that that's just a line item there. I don't anticipate any additional workshops or meetings that we would need added funding for. The current fund receiver from the CRA is the Community Caring Center. They have their incubator program that's currently receiving funding. That may be something that you want to fund again, or you may want to add additional funding for other agencies. This is just, again, what we're doing now, and input from the board is
I know
welcome.
that we increased their funding this year. I'd like to, I guess, get a report from them of that increase in funding. I think it went from 50,000 to 70,000. So before approving the 70,000, I'd like to see an output of what the money was used for, how many new jobs were created, new businesses. And I know that the Sailfish Cafe is part of the Secret Garden Cafe, which is part of the Community Caring Center. So just get an overall of the numbers that are being involved.
Yes, sir.
Michael, don't they have to do that under
They
the...
do. They provide quarterly. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What I'd also like to add is, since this is a business incubator program, it's a program that's supposed to be overall, correct? Not just allocated to one specific group or entity, nonprofit organization. Am I correct in that understanding? Yes or no?
There currently isn't a set policy or program to fund this agency or any others. It has been a supported line item by the board. If you would like with the CDBG fund or other fundings, if you want to put a certain amount of money into a budget and then provide an RFA, awareness of funding availability, we can.
Moving forward, I'd like to do something like that because I feel like there are other organizations also within our city that are doing great things like creating jobs and providing entrepreneurship opportunities for individuals. And I want to give an opportunity for that to be widespread across the board and give other nonprofits the opportunity to, play a part in that, and to also get funding if that's what we're willing to do here, which is what we've done for the past few years for Community Caring Center. So I'd like to make this more of an official program, not just a line item that goes specifically to one, and put it out as in terms of availability, because we have been accused up here of not being transparent with our funds, and I want to make sure that we are transparent and allowing for any organization that chooses to play a role in our city in terms of providing jobs, providing entrepreneurship opportunities, to really get that opportunity as well. So I think that's something that I'd like to.
I would agree with Board Member Romulus, in that the only condition really is that the principal business location is located within the CRA.
And the policy direction seems
it's
clear
a-
that it's for job creation, entrepreneurship, is business incubator.
Correct.
What we definitely want to keep that link from a CRA statutory. The social service part of funding is sketchy at best for the CRA, not for the city necessarily, but for our statute. And I think that there are, as Sherry is doing some very good work, that's a good focus for us, unless you have a difference of opinion on that for the type of criteria. We can bring back you some very simple for July, try to get it released and brought back. But what I would suggest that you think about, because the funding award can be done before September, doesn't have to be done in July or even August, but before the budget is finalized. But how about, is there a number that you'd like to see put in this fund that you might use for this type of work? So without knowing now how many or who else, you currently are allocated $70,000 under this year, and I know that Sherry's met all of her criteria for funding, so she's been successful. Do you want to double that? Do you want to put 125 or 150? And I mean, what is your thought on how to fund it? I think that would be a very good decision to make tonight if you can.
Board Member Romulus, do you have a number of?
I would potentially entertain something around the ballpark of 100 to 150 at the discretion of the board, because again, we don't know how many others might be out there and who might be willing to entertain this process. So, and since we've already seemed to be of the agreement that we want to send another 70 to Community Caring Center if they're up to par with what they've promised, then I think we should allocate some extra funds so that other organizations can also participate.
I'd suggest 150.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you are in agreement, we'll put that as a placeholder.
agree.
I want you to see, again, your bottom line there, you have 300,000 now, you'll put 150 in that line item, and you still have 221,000 left to allocate, in your overall kind of budget scheme there. So what is additionally left is our marketing and business assistance programs, and we haven't talked about our economic development grant programs. I think that there is about $100,000 worth of our required advertising and marketing that's done for the CRA, for our annual reports, for the agency, for other things that we do that are required, as well as the marina. There might be some savings there on the line item idea, so you could go down into the 100, 110 range on that versus 164, so I'm going to just suggest that amount. If you wanted to fund the Economic Development Grant Program, we could go up there and put the balance of 100,000 in that.
So to be clear, the Economic Development Grant Program, that's the program that allows for us to do things like what we just did for Choice tonight, which is to allow for them
yes,
to get
ma'am.
facade grants, rental reimbursement grants. I think we should keep putting emphasis on that.
Okay.
Because, that's been very successful. We've had a lot of small businesses open and we've
You
helped
sure
them
have.
be successful. So I'd like to continue doing
Okay.
that.
It's really been one of our most successful areas.
The maximum amount any one business can receive from a combination of the available grants?
I
If
think-
it's a restaurant and they maxed out all the grants somewhere in the $65,000 range, I would say. So what we could do is we could bring back, we do every year, we bring back those programs from the administrative side and applications and guidelines. Depending on the amount that you put in there, I would try to stretch, maybe we change some of the maximums and some of those tiers
Right.
and,
It was 50 or something, just to give
Yeah.
other businesses
Sure.
the opportunity.
Michael, didn't we up those numbers this
did.
past year? Didn't
We added 200,000 during the year we were running out of money. So it is, 100,000 in there
program.
will probably be gone very quickly. So
Very
if there's, again, we're not talking about rollover, we're not talking about any other kinds of funding, but this would be, again, you have areas that you can take from to add a little bit to it, or you can leave it at 100 for now and see as the next meetings come up if you have any changes.
Michael, if anything, I would be willing to maybe possibly bring down the business incubator program to 125 to add another 25 to the economic development program, just to make sure that we have enough funds in there.
Okay.
Because again, I think this is very popular, and I don't want to diminish the ability for new businesses to come in and get assistance as they're here in the city.
Okay, great.
For me, I saw that we still increased it by another 200,000 for this year.
Where's that going to come from?
No, that's this year. we've already done that.
Okay.
So it's, that's kind of why I'm kind of hesitant to increase it more so than the 100, because, we haven't made it aware for the public now, and we don't want, and I think we have other expenses that we could use.
How much have we allocated in the past for this program?
In the 300 to 350 range, sometimes 600. I mean, depending on where our focus that year for the board is. In those years, we weren't funding other things, perhaps.
Last year we
like,
allocated how much?
300,000 last year and added 200. We had run out, so we spent 500,000 last year in those grants.
Then I don't understand the 784.
That is your previous year's funding that was not spent, and then.
Oh, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
It's kind of a rolling forward. That line is
Okay.
last year's.
got it.
Yes, ma'am. So you have $38,000 left. It looks like at the bottom of the screen. You can allocate that somewhere, or you can we can stop and yes.
Michael, my take is for a housing rehab program, I'm just saying, we have no money in there, and we need money in there. I'm just saying for individuals that need help, I'm just saying, $38,000, that's not even enough to even look at. But we need to kind of like find some money to go in housing rehab, I'm just saying.
Would you like to consider, again, working with established city programs? Would you like to provide funding to those? We've met with Mark Woods. We've met with Octavia's staff. We've talked about this before, whether we recreate something that's already happening or we try to add funding and augment those rehabilitations to those homes. We haven't brought it to you this year, but that was a discussion that we felt like might be a good way to get more money out without having to start a whole new program, and they seem very receptive to that. So we could divide, $35,000 into $5,000 additional grants that would perhaps take the place of the water heater or the windows or a roof that they might not be able to do under their current limitations. So that might be a consideration. I think it would be more cost effective if we tried to combine funding and combine efforts rather than to try to start an entirely new program. That's just my having done it both ways.
Right. I'm not in favor of starting a new program, but I'm in favor of making sure that individuals will see up there that we are trying to do something to help elderly people who cannot afford to bring their homes up to par. You said that Octavia and Mark Woods, they have funds. If they have funds, then we should use those funds from the city. My take is that we need to start giving back and helping elderly people who cannot help themselves so they have a comfortable way of living here in our city. We said that we are a great city. Let's act like we're a great city.
This is a program that had been shelved for a while, and at the discretion of the board, we asked you guys to bring that information back to us to possibly revise it.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we haven't been presented that yet, though, have we?
I don't believe in a formal way, no.
Okay.
We did it for 2 years, and then funding was allocated elsewhere, and there was an abundance of, that was the home buyer and SHIP and the days when there was quite a bit of funding for that type of work.
So yeah, I don't have a problem looking at that program language again, and if there's potential revisions and things that need to occur, in time, I wouldn't have an opposition to allocating funds for that. But right now, we don't know what the program might look like moving forward because of potential changes.
We can bring that back to you. We can bring back some ideas and concepts working with the city even too. They seem very receptive to it. So we'll put that, how about we'll just add a line to that empty box there, and we'll just, or in housing rehab, you just put the 30,000 in there. You can put that in the 30, put the balance in the rehab program.
Again, all this is just discussion. We have
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes. We're not asking for you to approve the project fund budget this evening. We just wanted to get this ball started. We'll bring you backup information you requested. We'll provide additional information at the July meeting. We'll revisit it, talk about any of the backup that you want to. If there's anything that comes up between now and then that you didn't think of tonight, or if someone brings you a proposal somewhere between, we can certainly, it's a live, living document that just keeps moving until you finally adopt the budget. So this has been a good exercise. Also, before we go, I think it's worth bringing up an additional point to be made with this. If Vicki can just scroll up to, and maybe out a little bit. One of the things that we wanted and have talked about and wanted to provide to you, and I think it's perfectly timed with the decision with Town Square last evening and the funding you decided to support a, $200+ million project. As you begin to start committing funds both in tax increment revenue funding agreement payments and in obligations out in years, whether that be to Town Square in the several millions or in the 500,000 or 600,000 or $1 million, what we wanted to present to you, and you can certainly have time to look at that on your own and ask questions next time or to me at any time you want, is to begin to see how over time those agreements do end and we stop having to pay those tax increment funds to and for the developments. They're successful, they're finished, their life is over as far as the agreement and obligation. And you're asked occasionally to take on new agreements that provide additional TIF funding in new ways as we go forward. So kind of the big picture is you need new TIF revenue or desire it for new programs, the more funding that you are apt to provide in a long-term basis to individual developments, as long as I think you're fiduciarily aware that it will have an effect on increases to your budget. I think that's important. The decisions you make regarding those agreements and how you allocate the funding going forward is certainly the board's decision and policy. But I just wanted you to see that you get out into the 2005 and 6 range, 26, you have your debt service, our bonds are paid off, which frees up several $1 million in project funding. You're always, we've been very conservative in our estimates at a 3% increase over years. That doesn't account for, obviously, years where it may drop 8%, nor does it account for years like this where we went up 8%. But it is important because those obligations, had you had too many, Town Square might not have been able to happen. So I compliment the board on requesting this type of information and considering it as you go forward. These are important decisions. Thank you.
Just tentatively based on what we just kind of eyeballed out for the next year's budget, that if all the items that were just thrown out there ultimately get approved, that zeroes out our discretionary spending for fiscal year 17-18, correct?
For the project fund, yes, as new money. Now, we will do a true-up of existing and remaining funds. For instance, you have not spent, and I didn't really want to get too much into that, but it's a good question. There will be funding from leftover. That's what happened last night with your $1.5 million. You had the dog park item. You had a little money left over from the Marina Open Space project that you allocated toward that. You currently have the money that you had set aside for matching grant on the 9% credit tax credit program that was not realized, so that's there. There will be an opportunity to see some additional funding to allocate. That might be a consideration for the years after next when you start seeing a larger requirement to the project fund for Town Square. You might want to try to, as you had suggested in one meeting, Board Member Katz, to get that out so that we can begin saving for the years where you see a larger requirement. It was a great presentation last night by city staff where the first couple of years of that project are going to require a little bit more from the CRA. And as soon as that kind of hit happens, it starts backing off again. So it makes sense to try to prepare for those leaner years now. That was my thought last evening as well.
Or do you want to open up to public comments or wait until after the CRA Board, because we're going to be discussing this again in July?
Yeah, this is just a rough draft. That's really nothing to talk about.
We're not going to open it up to public comments.
Okay, I just have one comment.
Nope. No, thank you.
Board, if you would like to suggest to the public that if they have ideas or comments they'd like to send to the CRA via the internet or drop them by or mail letters, we're always happy to provide those to you at your meetings and log that input. That's always available to the public to call me or, again, the website, email, whatever.
Thank you. All right, moving on to old business, item B, consideration of extension or termination for special event grant funding for et cetera Entertainment, Inc. for the Boynton Beach Brunch Fest. Is someone from that organization here? Seeing that they're not here, can I get a motion to terminate? Is there a second?
I haven't heard anything, or I'll wait for discussion if someone's saying.
Yeah.
What would you, Vice Chair? Do you have any discussion?
I was just going to say they postponed their event because of rain, so while they haven't come back to us to specify a makeup date, so to say, I think that they went through the process, and if they reach out to us in a reasonable amount of time, rather than make them come back up here and make the request again,
Well, have they spoken to anyone?
not that I'm aware of.
So this is staff directed?
Yes, ma'am. We inside the grant, we don't have a administrative relief that staff could say, we'll grant you for a rain day. You know, these things happen. So the grant is alive for, let's say, a 60 or 90-day period without having to come to the board. So since there isn't, that's why we're bringing it to you.
Oh,
So
there
you
is
can-
nothing written in our grant to say
That there's
after a certain period.
No, and definitely not for a delay of an event that now had to
So
be
that will be
rescheduled.
entertained as we rewrite our special events grant, or
If you
if we continue.
fund it this year,
Okay,
yes,
there you
ma'am.
go.
Okay.
Michael, how long has it been since the postponement of the event?
Yeah, April 30th. And they had initially requested not to not honor the grant because of some of for whatever reason, but then they accepted it again, if you will, without terminating it on their own. And then the rain came, or the reason that they found to cancel the event, and it has not been rescheduled. If you wanted to provide another 30 days for them to hold it, or if you they can always, again, come back.
I think we should reach out to them and see what their plan is, and
You have?
To be
So,
completely
yeah.
frank, I don't
Do you
think it's
wanna-
our job
Mercedes,
to
do you
reach
wanna-
out to them. It's
Yeah.
not our job to reach out to them.
And that's
This is money. I mean, we've just had a discussion on money. We are already running short. If they don't need it at this point in time, then they can come back.
but there's no policy we have in place now to say what that timeline is. So I think that being courteous, we just give them a ring and see what their plans are, if they have any plans.
Yeah.
I'll literally reach out and call them tomorrow, but that would require a 30-day extension, so that if they say yes to me tomorrow and I direct them to come back in or whatever.
Yeah, I'm in the decline of it in the sense that, they had the opportunity to reach out to us. We are giving them the grant, not that, and so I feel that seeing how nothing has been communicated within 45 days, that it's better that we ask them to refile for the special event grant rather than give them on the one that we approved for April 30th.
I would ask for a 30-day extension. I put that in the form of a motion.
All right.
Thanks.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed state so by saying nay.
Nay.
It is not approved. Can I have a motion to terminate
A
them?
motion back on the floor, so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. The special event grant is terminated for et cetera Entertainment. Moving on to item D, consideration of tax increment revenue funding agreement for the Ocean One project. Tara, or Bonnie here to go? Who would like to go first?
I think the way that we would like to present this to the board, and we've discussed this with developer and their representative, is I have summarized discussion points for you that are a summary of the term sheet that was provided in the backup to the agenda. And we would, as staff, like to go through each of the points for you line by line and get direction, a consensus direction on how to move forward with each point. Before we move forward, I've asked developers representative Bonnie Miskell to come to the podium to answer any questions you may have or that may result from that discussion. So that is how we'd like to proceed if it is the will of the board.
Okay.
So to get started, we have, and Mike will jump in here with me, sat with a developer and developers consultants several times to negotiate the terms of a tax increment revenue funding agreement. and an associated purchase and development agreement for a piece of property with the CRA. Staff has brought this to as close to terms as we can before needing to come to you all and get your direction on a variety of terms. So for purposes of the discussion in the sheet in front of you, developers' requests are indicated in red and highlighted in red, and discussion points where staff is requesting your direction are highlighted in blue. Of course, if there's anything that I haven't highlighted in blue that you need to stop either Mike, myself, or Bonnie as we go through, please feel free to do that. But what we're trying to do before we move to the next point is get consensus and then move on. So to get started, I think the first thing that we want to explain to you is what the developer has agreed to do as part of the project, and if there are any questions you have about that. Phase 1 of the project is currently under the agreement not tied to the site plan for the project. I do believe that the developer would be amenable to making it tied to the site plan, which basically means you as a board will know what the project is going to look like, as opposed to it just being a verbal description or a written description of what it's going to be.
So that the plan that we've approved as a city is the one that's going to be put there.
Correct.
That seems reasonable.
And we are amenable to that.
Okay.
So moving on, the next point of reference is the agreement by developers to commence construction of Phase 1 of the project within 2 years of the date of the agreement that we are seeking to put together.
That phase 2?
No, that's Phase 1.
So, and that if it is not completed, that we get the park instead?
No, that is separate. That's the purchase and sale agreement, which we will get to at the next agenda item.
So what's happening is that if they do not build within 2 years, they are not eligible for TIF.
They are not eligible for TIF, and in fact, the way the agreement is written is if they didn't commence construction of Phase 1 within the 2 years, the contract would be terminated as to Phase 1.
But not Phase 2.
But not Phase 2, as developer has written it. We will get to that point.
Okay.
Okay, that doesn't make sense, but
Do you want to bump that item up?
Yeah, let me do that. So where we are in the discussions is currently there is a single property owned by the developer that will be combined with the CRA parcel into one piece of property. We had been negotiating an agreement for 2 phases on a single piece of property, 2 phases of payment. Last week, we all discussed, and developer informed us that they intend to separate the property into a Phase 2 piece of property and a Phase 1 piece of property, both of those with individual tax ID parcel control numbers, which from a staff perspective is a much cleaner way to approach assigning tax increment revenue to Phase 1 and Phase 2. However, the agreement as presented to you tonight includes both phases in one agreement. Where we are seeking direction from you is developers requesting bifurcation of the terms of the agreement by phase. So the terms of the agreement with regard to conditions to receiving funding, annual performance reporting, assignment, default, and termination would be applicable by phase as opposed to both phases at the same time. Staff's comment to you and where we're seeking direction is this developer's proposal could result in their being in default on Phase 1, but not in default as to terms regarding Phase 2, which would mean they were getting funding for Phase 2, but not for Phase 1.
So, from my understanding is that they're in default of the part of the contract, but not the whole part of the contract, so that they still get the other part that they're not in default.
Correct.
Can I
Yes,
elaborate
please.
a little bit, too, to give you a little background? You know, we are creating 2 parcels, the Phase 1 parcel and the Phase 2 parcel. And they are related right now, but eventually they may not be. the same owner may have an interest in each parcel, but they are two very different developments. One is a hotel primarily with some corresponding residential, and the other is a residential mixed-use building. So in the event, we will have two different development entities, and it would be, in our estimation, punitive for if one of those entities is entirely in compliance with their agreement, that they should be able to continue with the benefits and the obligations of that agreement and not be penalized because the other parcel and another entity happens to be in default of something.
The problem with that is that we are contracting with the future unknown entity, which you don't normally want to do regarding having contracts because we don't know what the future unknown entity will do or not do, whereas they can be in default and phase one won't be.
Well, right now
And
you'll be contracting with the owner. The owner is the entity that you are executing a contract with. They, in the future, will assign it. For example, a hotel developer will come in and they will control that part of the deal because that's what they do for a living. But right now, you do have a known entity that you are contracting with, and it is the owner.
Okay, so it doesn't change the fact we still would be contracting with the unknown hotel developer entity. With that being aware, I am not comfortable, moving forward with a phase two of this agreement because there's too many unknowns that, we have not seen the site plan. There's so much that is unknown. Whereas with phase one, we know that there's a site plan approved and we're okay with that. Phase two, there is no site plan. All that we have seen is a box on a piece of paper with no architectural designs whatsoever. So I'd like to get the impression from the board here, are we okay to go forward with a phase two without knowing what exactly is going to happen? Vice Chair Katz.
I kind of share the sentiment of the chair. If at some point in time the second phase is sold off or contracted out, in all fairness, this seems like a business issue that the property owner would have to deal with as a result of that business decision as the CRA, and then, in accord with taking care of taxpayer dollars. My willingness to support the funds for phase one are in large part based on hopefully the inevitability of phase two, but this severance, to me, creates a situation where phase two is less sure, and that concerns me. So I know that, we've gone from it's one parcel, now it's two parcels. It was one parcel with two phases, now it's two parcels with one phase. It's become somewhat confusing to the point that the maneuvering to try to limit risk by the property owner, there's an extent to it, and as a government organization, I don't know if personally I could absorb that risk on behalf of the taxpayers.
Well, the benefit of having the phase two section of this contract is exactly the reason that we probably should have done this a year ago. When a hotel user comes in, they're not going to want to wait a year to know whether they have the TIF incentive. They are going to want to act in a very short window. This has taken us about a year. So if we are in the same position for phase two, we will very likely lose a potential hotel operator. So the benefit of, and I understand what the mayor's saying, this is a little unique to you in that phase two is speculative to the extent that you don't have a site plan that shows the setbacks and it shows where the parking is precisely, that there are some things that we're going to have to come back to you and get approvals for. But what it does enable us to do is to, when we go out and we're marketing the site for a good hotel operator and developer, we don't have to wait a year to go through this entire process in order to be able to tell them whether it's real or not.
Well, to be, not to point any fingers, but why did it take a year? Was it on our part that it took a year for this to happen?
No, I'm not suggesting that. It's a process, and this is a large development. We had to get a site plan designed and through the process in order to get where we are today, so that you could at least see what you've got and see how it would lay out, and frankly, see how Phase 2 would lay out, because we do give you a master plan that shows you how Phase 2 will be laid out. But you don't get a site plan for Phase 2, I get it. But it took us that amount of time to develop that plan and usher that through, and we had a few boards to go to.
Kara, just real quickly, on this Phase 2, don't we have checks and balances as far as timelines go, that if they don't adhere to those timelines, it goes away anyway?
Yeah, if as developers propose the termination language, if they fail to move forward with the commencement of construction of Phase 2 within the timelines associated, then the agreement could be terminated as to Phase 2.
So that's.
And I do want to just say that the other option that we discussed with developer very late in this game, and weren't able to bring that forward, is the potential of separating the two agreements, which would solve a lot of the problems from a legal perspective that I have with assignability, et cetera. And in the Phase 1 would be about Phase 1, and it could be assigned to the future developer at your discretion. Phase 2, if there are additional protections you would like in the future as to a future site plan, that's something that could be negotiated with the developer in a separate agreement. But we hadn't gotten to that point, which is why we're here seeking your direction. So I just want to put that on the table as an option for you all to consider as well.
Would those agreements, would that be in a form of timelines that for Phase 2?
Correct, and it would be the same terms,
Right.
As what we already have, but it would be specific to Phase 2. And I think the only thing that would need to be addressed, based on the comments from the chair and vice chair and board member Romulus, are the future site plan and what that would look like, and if there was some sort of mechanism where the CRA has approval, or it has to be submitted, or some mechanism like that in the future that would say you have to do that before you can go here. That could be an additional term that could be negotiated potentially.
So I'd like to say before Board Member McRae is that I'd be happy to do the bifurcation of Phase 1 and Phase 2. I know that we are all interested as the board member to have the hotel there. However, tying it in with the Phase 1 and slowing down Phase 1 is not something it seems to be working out. So if we could separate it, and so like you said, that when the hotel developer comes in, that they don't have to wait the year, that we will still be working on the Phase 2 aspect of it. So I'd be happy to do the bifurcation of the phases.
Along with the bifurcation of the project.
Correct.
Two separate agreements.
Two separate agreements, whereas the purchase and development agreement can move forward because it is for Phase 1.
That's fine. That makes sense.
And I would also ask that we tie the Phase
Hands
2
up.
agreement. Sorry, Phase 2 agreement to the
My hands
to
up.
the site plan. Sorry.
All right, Board Member McRae, please.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the bifurcation agreement, and that's why I put my hand up even before you spoke. I'm just saying it needs to be separate. You know, no need to tie in this project and bringing it into us and expect us to move tonight without having legal to look through this whole thing. And then I know there's a $10 sale price of the property, and they might flip it. And I'm just saying we need to have something, have a control mechanism. And this is why I'm saying we need to not move on this tonight. We need to let legal go back and then bring it back to us again.
Can I just respond to that?
Yes, please.
I think that, and Tara can correct me if I'm wrong, as to Phase 1, the agreement and the terms are fully vetted and final, and really the only principal dispute that we had was that we wanted to bifurcate. So if you're in agreement that we separate Phase 1 and Phase 2, we do a separate agreement for Phase 2. The Phase 1 agreement is ready to go. I really think the only other minor details that we had were very, very minor in nature, and frankly, we're okay with the contract otherwise. Tara, you can weigh in if you wish.
And what I would suggest is before the board makes that decision, we should go through the rest of the issues with regard to the agreement as is, and then at the end of that, I think you'll have a feel for whether you think you can send us off without seeing the agreement again. That'll obviously be up to you. One thing that would obviously have to happen is we would have to take out Phase 2. So that would happen. And we can go through it and talk about what would need to be changed if the board would like to do that. But with that being said, the bifurcation, that takes care of that issue. I'm going to go back up to the description of the project, if that is okay with the board.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've discussed the commencement of construction. We've talked about tying it to the site plan, which developers agreed to do. It includes the 231 multifamily residential units with related amenities. It includes the 8,575 square feet of commercial space. A discussion point there has been developer is agreeing to a condition that they will build and construct the commercial space as a condition precedent to receiving funding, but there is no requirement that the commercial space be filled to any certain percentage as a condition precedent, or that efforts are made. That's just sort of, they're going to build it, it'll be on the tax rolls, and the payment's made. So that's a point of discussion that staff needs direction from the board.
Vice Chair.
No, we've lamented the lack of retailing Casa Costa in reference to their TIF agreement, so I don't have a specific percentage in mind, but I feel like it would be better if there was some minimum percentage filled, and presumably the developer intends to rent these units, so it's if it's a fair percentage that says you've got to put in enough effort to achieve a certain level of tenancy, then that's something I'm looking for.
Board Member Romulus.
I'd be willing to throw out the number of 50%.
My discussion is that when the construction is first completed, there may not be someone there, and so for them not to receive the TIF the first year because they couldn't find somebody, I think that's a little punitive. I think if we do it on a step level, that after the first year, that 25%, then after 3 years, 50%, and by the 7th and 8th year, that's 75%. That way it is moved on a gradual basis, and that I think that the developer can work with us to get that moving forward with the economic development grants and such like that.
Board Chair, were those percentages related to the amount of retail space
Well,
filled, or was
no.
that related
I hear
to
there's 4 units. Is that correct? Or-
Well, I'm not, it may be more or less, I mean, there's, I think you should probably go on the total square footage that's proposed.
Perfect. So if you have a huge restaurant that's taking up 50%, then that's occupies it for the 50%.
50% of our non-residential is what we're talking about,
But-
which,
What the chair has proposed, and I'm going to repeat it because I want to make
Yeah.
sure I've captured it correctly,
Yeah.
is that the first year, to receive the first year of funding, you would not be required to have a tenant. There'd be a 0% requirement. After the first year, you would be required to have a 25% tenancy, occupancy of the square footage. And then the second year,
Third year.
the third year would be 50%. And the fifth year,
I said the 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th. That's why I asked you to repeat it. I
Yeah.
lost your years. 7th and 8th would be 75%.
That's square footage.
Percentage of the square footage.
okay.
Because what we don't want to see is that it hits the 50% and then nothing gets done for the remainder of 5 years.
Okay, so you're reluctantly twisting our arm, but the answer would be that would be fine.
Okay, well, thank you.
A reluctant yes.
We heard it in your voice.
I'll just put my 2 cents in here. I honestly don't even feel that incremental step up is necessary. This is going to be prime property. I think these retail spaces will probably go like, fireworks on the 4th of July. So,
On the 1st of July.
whatever. Oh, yes, first for this year. But either way, so I'm
So,
okay
yeah,
with
this is
that.
more of a
We can move up with it.
fallback minimum level.
That's fine.
Okay. So,
Okay.
moving forward?
Okay, moving forward. And another piece of the Phase 1 project is the agreement by developer to construct 50 public parking spaces that will be restricted from use by the residential units. At this time, developer has agreed to construct them, but they will be not be maintained and managed by the developer. And these are not above and beyond code, but they will be restricted from use by the residential. So,
Yes,
discussion.
Bonnie, would you like
Well,
to begin?
can I clarify too? the reason that I'm going to break the 2 points, that we did not factor into our costs the maintenance of the spaces. So that's not a dollar amount. You know, I don't want you to think that, well, we're paying you for that, so you should do it. It wasn't included. Now, we certainly, what I think we're anticipating is for us to come back and enter into a parking facilities agreement with you at a later date where we're going to lay out all of our responsibilities collectively as to the public parking spaces, and we're happy to do that. We just didn't do it in this contract.
And if I could add to that, I think from a staff perspective, the concern was about the spaces once they were in a garage, which is the Phase 2 spaces. So I don't know that the maintenance was an issue for staff, and Mike's here and can speak to that.
Before you go, I know that there's some that are spaces of the 50 or that are within the garage and some that are outside on the street. Is that correct?
On Phase 1, that is not correct, but in
Okay.
Phase 2, they will be entirely within the garage.
Okay, so since we do not have to worry about that.
Until
and that-
Phase 2, we might want to talk about it in Phase 2.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough.
So meaning that these 50 that are outside will still be maintained and managed by the CRA? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah,
Yes.
And the
And-
the surface spaces we're referring to.
Yes.
What does
Okay.
that look like cost-wise? Minimal? A lot?
The maintenance of the landscaping, probably, I would think at least $1,100, $1,200 a month with blowing and trash pickup, I would think.
For
So
all
$15,000 a
50?
year probably for 50.
15,000?
If we're only maintaining the concrete in the space where the parking stop is, then
which
it
is
would
on
be-
the Phase 2's property.
Yeah, I mean,
So if
I don't want to
if-
donate my client's money. I'll probably
Well,
get
the
murdered
only-
in the
the only-
parking lot. But I think our expectation was, you're talking about debris cleanup and making sure that the stops are
So
in
that your
place.
client would accept the liability for the lights and other parts, the premise liability aspect of it for his property.
I'm getting the nod. That would be a yes.
Okay, so the CRA is not responsible
Just
for the
the
premise
cleanup
liability on-
and maintaining the, yeah. Okay.
So are there any other questions about the parking spaces?
No.
Mike?
Can I talk about the other part of it, too? You may remember during the site plan approval, we talked about utilizing within our parking garage, and primarily for our residents, to give them options, possibly utilizing lifts in some cases where people have more than one car, or exercising very likely with a good restaurant the option of valet and utilizing the top deck for stacking. So, which is being done in just about every other parking garage, in Delray and Boca at this time. So, the comment about not above and beyond code. We do have more spaces than code requires, but we are reserving the right on the upper levels of our decks to create more spaces if needed. So I think that's why Tara wanted to clarify. I just wanted to explain to you what we had discussed previously as it relates to the site plan.
The discussion of the parking management agreement that would come back later is, I'm assuming we would want to make that contingent, that the Phase 1 funding and payment of that, meeting all conditions, that was something that would be resolved as part of the TURFA for the phase. I mean, without reaching that agreement, then we would still, how do you want to tie that?
I thought I heard the board say the maintenance agreement would be for Phase 2. Did I hear that correctly? And that we would agree to maintain
I
the
thought
parking
the-
spaces of Phase 1.
I thought that the parking spaces are on the Phase 2 of the property, and so when Phase 2 happens, will need to enter into a new agreement for the parking facility.
Well, the parking agreement is
Right.
not
Will
Phase
be
1, would be
tied
Phase
to
2.
Phase 2.
Okay.
Correct.
Right.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
And that the developer is doing the initial landscaping and of the planting of the trees and the lights and the
That's
trash.
correct.
I had clean, maintain landscape and improvements.
Yep. And hopefully we can hire local workers to do that.
The next thing is that the residential units will be compliance with the nationally recognized green building rating system. Moving on, the community benefit requirements include the following. Developer will hire job placement consultant during construction, will host a job fair, We'll give priority to locally owned small businesses as contractors and subcontractors for construction. We'll require contractors and subcontractors to use good faith efforts to hire city residents. Several of you had questions about good faith. It's a defined term in the agreement. As proposed by developer, it says use reasonable means to accomplish the goal. I had added all reasonable means. The word all is a qualifier, so that is a discussion point. Reasonable is a oft-used legal term that the public probably looks at us like we're crazy, but it does have case law behind it that explains what reasonable, how it applies to efforts to comply with contractual terms. So the question is the qualifier all reasonable? Would you prefer to say reasonable means or all reasonable means?
Just say
It sounds like we're all in, it's.
we don't need to include all.
No,
Yeah.
don't take all.
So that,
Reasonable
because
means.
I'd like to add something as well, Bonnie, that the developer looks into working with either of the city's adult education places of South Tech or the Boynton Beach Community High School, so that in anticipation of this development, there may be a special grant for Boynton Beach residents to get the pre-apprenticeship training, or that those people graduating from those programs have preferential treatment in the hiring.
All right, so I got the community high school. I'm sorry, what was the other entity?
South Tech Academy.
South Tech Academy. So basically, seek some sort of a program with them to
So
participate.
It's more of with the community outreach partner.
Okay. That sounds right in line with some of the other programs that we do, so I don't think we'll have any issue with that. So we can incorporate that into the document.
Okay, the next item was provide list of jobs to a community outreach partner. That hasn't been named in the agreement. I am not, from a legal perspective, suggesting you require them to include the name, but I would imagine they will at some point report that to you, and I wanted input from the board on how you'd like them to present who their community outreach partner would be in the future.
Oh, I think we just discussed it.
Okay.
Kind of a nonprofit organization or a local school to work with you, career source, what have you.
We do have an audit requirement in this document, so that would be where you would see that type of activity.
Thank you.
Okay, they have agreed to use good faith efforts to offer city residents permanent jobs. And they have agreed to pay new permanent hires from the city a minimum of the living wage. I've highlighted minimum of the living wage because several of you had questions about that, so I'll let Bonnie or one of her teammates discuss that.
Are there questions about it?
Is that a dollar amount that we can have?
I don't even know what the dollar, oh, geez, be on the spot here. Johnny on the spot. Actually,
Well,
it's an established amount. It is above the federal minimum wage, and we knew that number, but I'm having a senior moment.
$11.15 an
Okay.
hour.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And that is, if it's next year, maybe increased because. Okay.
Yeah, it's a variable, but it's above the federal standards. So.
All right. Excellent.
So to understand clearly, it will be the living wage at the time that you open your doors, not now,
It would be at the time that they're hired.
at the time that they're hired,
Right.
correct?
And I imagine that as the number increases, if the same employee is there for 5 years, their wage would be adjusted over the period of time that they've been employed.
Okay, and I also want to go back one point. The good faith efforts to hire city residents for permanent jobs, that means by all means necessary to reach out and
The
give
all
people-
reasonable means, the definition of good faith would be, include the all.
So it's not like just a blurb in the Sun Sentinel.
No, and
to offer
actually,
jobs.
we brought our team who actually does this type of exercise, and they're here to answer your questions specifically if you'd like them.
We don't really need to go into details. I just need to
Okay.
understand that it's means by all means necessary to allow people to know that your facility is hiring and that they can get hired.
That is exactly
So
right.
basically, you're going to have a sign out to work at the location
Well,
as well?
you know, that includes a number of different tools, job fairs, noticing local schools, both high schools and post-secondary schools, ads in local newspapers, posting on if the city has them in City Hall, which some cities do, job posting areas, posting them in job posting areas. It's a whole host. And it also has to do with the relationships that we have, notifying those community groups.
It's something that is defensible.
That's
Right.
exactly right.
Right. Bonnie, besides South Tech and Boynton Beach High School, we have some community outreach programs. I'm just saying they are, in regards to community benefit agreements, they have been looking at this, and we'd like to make sure that they are included. I will get you the names of the people that we need to look at.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll be happy to receive
you.
those.
All right.
Are there any other questions from the board about the Phase 1 description?
Nope.
Okay, moving on to Phase 2. Do you want to discuss Phase 2 or move forward?
I am guessing the answer
So-
is probably no.
She's
to
talking to
that.
us.
We're sorry, we're sorry.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Board?
I think that, given the scope and the investment of the CRA, it's a $100 million project. I think we got to sit through it. Not to offend, but
Okay.
terms are similar,
That's
it's really
what we
just
were
the
talking
points
is
of
the
it.
bifurcation.
Right.
Not doing it again. So the only thing that, because of all the languages that we are unaware of regarding the site plan, I am very hopeful that the only really thing that I would want to put towards the Phase 1 is that the construction commence within 2 years of substantial completion of Phase 1, and that we discuss Phase 2 when we have more information of Phase 2. So that the only thing tying Phase 2 to Phase 1 is that construction is to commence within a certain time period, whether it increases to 3 years because of the now unknowns of setting this agreement, rather than try to figure out the 100-room hotel, 118 multifamily residential units, 6,000 square feet of commercial space, 350 parking garage right now. I think it's better that we wait so that we can really make sure that this is in the best interest of the CRA and that we can understand what's going forward. Because currently they're not tying the site plan, and I think in order for us to approve a Phase 2 funding, we need to see the site plan.
Okay, so let me be clear before I ask Bonnie.
This is why I asked.
Do you want me to bring forward an agreement that is same terms as what I have for Phase 1, that has a requirement in it for funding that requires them to come forward with a site plan as a condition precedent to any funding beginning? Is that what you're asking me to do?
Correct.
Okay,
Is
just
that
want to be
what
clear.
the board would agree that we see what's
How do
going on?
we come with a site plan? We don't know what hotel or,
It wouldn't be a site plan to execute the agreement. As a condition of the agreement, it would say, at such time that they're ready, within a given window of time, they would have to bring you a site plan to approve as the CRA Board as a condition precedent to receiving any funding under the agreement.
That would meet code.
That would-
So we recognize, so that the only variable would be whether that site plan meets code. I think what Tara's explaining is that the terms are the same. The Phase 1 and the Phase 2 terms are the same. You have an amount of level of development that is proposed for Phase 1 that we just talked about, and you will have this other level of development proposed for Phase 2. We have done some design and master planning, and we know we can fit this. So we know this is a viable option, assuming we find a user. So really, the only condition is that the agreement doesn't take effect until we've submitted a site plan to you to perfect, essentially, the agreement. But the agreement will have already been decided. It's just perfecting the agreement.
so the timeline wouldn't start until you submit that site plan?
The timeline wouldn't start till actually, the timeline will be contained in that Phase 2 agreement. It's a little more than that. We're limited. We have to have that done no later than 2 years from substantial completion of Phase 1. So, the monkey's going to be on our back, that we can't just dilly-dally. We're either going to be able to do it or we won't. And if we don't do it within the 2-year period after substantial completion, then the agreement is terminated as to Phase 2.
And then if a new Phase 2 agreement would have to be commenced in order to get the TIF funding.
That's correct, and the site plan would be a part of that.
And so this is to help the sale of the Phase 2 project to a hoteler because the Phase 2
Well, it's to
TIF.
attract a hotel
Yeah,
operator, yeah.
Because the Phase 2 funding for TIF, it would be included.
And that incentive would be needed in order for a hotel to look at the site. So it actually helps to, to respond to a comment Commissioner Katz made. It's an enticement to the hotel operator to come and look at the site because they won't have to wait a year to get the approval. The approval will be had. They just need to get their site plan done.
And then we see the site plan
That's correct.
as part of the agreement.
But you're not perfecting the agreement really till that site plan's been reviewed, approved, and it meets your city code.
My comment is, let me go ahead and say this, because I'm just saying we discussed this whole project and it was a table matter. I'm all for motion, we remove it from the table so we'll be able to Robert rules so that we do it the right way. We discussed it without even getting it off the table.
Move.
No, that's item DC,
Okay,
so we're good.
okay. So we down to D.
We're still on D.
Okay.
Before C.
Y'all put D before C, I didn't, okay. I just said approved.
All right.
Let's move on.
So the question to the board tonight is that we are agreeing that there's a bifurcation of the Phase 2 contract
Right.
with the similar terms that we just had with Phase 1 of the contract, with the connection being for the Phase 2 contract that it's construction to commence within 2 years of substantial completion of Phase 1, being the tying term between the Phase 2 contract and the Phase 1 contract. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That we tie it to the site plan.
Yeah, and that's the site, and that we see the site plan before.
Right, it has to be approved.
Is that a city-approved site plan or CRA Board reviewed an acceptable site plan?
The question is that developer
think
is going
there's
to
a
go
difference.
do what they did and ask for the city to approve it first, or then the CRA, or the CRA
Well, we
then?
probably, and my guess is we'd run them concurrently. We'd want you to see it before we
Right.
embark on a 6-month process. If you don't like it, then we've kind of wasted time that is.
But the actual funding of it would require, obviously,
Yeah.
site plan. Couldn't
Absolutely.
build it.
So,
in-
so yeah,
I would say that it would be CRA approval of the site plan. Understanding that we'll have to go through a separate process with the city, but since we are the funding agency, this board would need to look at it also.
So yeah, if you could go in front of the CRA first before you get final completion from.
We would likely, we would
development.
run it concurrently, though, to be sure that the document we're presenting to you is actually compliant with the code.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
go ahead.
No,
Next.
you please go.
Okay, and so the other thing is that a part of the Phase 2 contract is a parking facilities management agreement.
Correct. That would be new to this document that isn't in your present document.
Okay. Is there anything in addition?
So we're making the terms the same as Phase 1 in terms of the commercial space and
All this? other-
everything will apply to Phase 2.
Correct. And the two main differences is the 2 years commencement after substantial completion of Phase 1 and the entering into a parking facilities management agreement for Phase 1 and Phase 2, or just Phase 2?
Well, as it turns out, the Phase 1 spaces are going to end up in the parking garage, so it would be both.
Okay.
Right.
So-
And in this document, we have the right to relocate the spaces, which we all know we're going to do, so.
Okay.
And I think the third thing is that tying the effective portion of your Phase 2 agreement to an approved site plan.
Okay, the next piece, unless there's any other questions, is assignment. Most of the comments here have been resolved by the bifurcation issue. The only issue is the terminology. Developer would like to assign with CRA written consent not to be unreasonably withheld. So whether or not that qualifying language is okay with you of their assigning it to another entity. I have less concerns about that given the bifurcation. So my concerns are solved by the bifurcating, and it's at the board's discretion of what level of control you want over assignment to a future developer, if not the current
And this
owner.
is for both Phase 1 and Phase 2?
It would be the same term in both contracts.
I don't see a problem that that we do get to see it and speak with the new assignee.
Yeah,
and ask any questions that we may have.
That would be fine. We're happy to present to you.
Okay.
Questions, comments? Moving on.
The next is the term and percentage of funding request. I've laid it out here as 8-year term, years 1 through 7 at 75%, and year 8 at 50%. And that would be the same for both phases, 2 separate 8-year terms, 1 for each phase.
Question from the board? Seeing none, it seems to be agreeable.
The next one, I think Bonnie and I can work out. It's about the annual performance report needing to be accepted by the CRA. That's our recommendation.
And if, you know,
We're just not clear what that means. Since the report is a factual document, we're not
so
sure.
it's kind of like I don't know, so what we do for Casa Costa, can you explain that?
Right. We just have that it is compliant with the agreement. It's just bringing it to the board at a regular meeting, and we can lay that out more clearly.
Okay.
To say, yes, it has complied with the agreement, check, it's done.
Okay, fine.
that,
We
you know,
were just
and-
unclear on the nomenclature.
And that it
Thank you.
includes the hirees as well.
Yes.
Okay?
It
And that-
I was just going to say, it provides the board the final approval of releasement of those funds, as opposed to CRA staff releasing, a $4 million check. It should come before you
Well-
for approval.
It's not 4 million all at once, so,
That's correct.
okay.
So that is the first agenda item. The remaining information on this page is related to the next agenda item.
Yeah,
All right, so would you like-
excuse me, the mayor made a point. It said a $4 million, but like he said, it's not $4 million all at once. And when you say something like that, the public don't know what we're talking about, and we need to make it be clear to be over a years of time, I'm just saying, so they know.
You're
Thank you.
absolutely right. That's the total amount being paid over the 8-year period.
Thank you, 4 million.
That's for clarification.
So the question now before you is what Board Member McCray put forward before, which is, do you want to agree to these terms and have us bring it back in July? Or I would recommend that. I know we don't want to stall the developer, but given that we're bifurcating the agreement, I think with this, it would be cursory at that point, but I think from a legal perspective, I can imagine you would want to see what that agreement would look like in its final form before executing it.
Bonnie, is that okay regarding the purchase and development? Or would you want to make the purchase and development, we can finalize that subject to the
Yeah.
phase 1?
We haven't gotten to the purchase and sale yet. I think
Yeah,
she's
I'm
she's
talking
just
about the
referring to coming
phase
back
one.
with the TURFA agreement.
So, well, that's what I'm saying, is that, that's the second part, if we remove it from the table or not. Is that what you?
I think that we have no problem bringing the incentive agreement back to you, reflecting the bifurcation and all of your
And then
comments.
we'll remove
And then
that.
you'll move it at that date. That would be fine, and this has been very
All right.
helpful. On the next item, though, we would like to proceed with that because we've been holding off doing construction drawings and such until we know we have that parcel, because
Well,
obviously.
So that's what I was asking,
Okay.
where we make the purchase and development agreement, we can approve that, subject to the phase 1 being signed. So,
Well, I see. So you would approve it this evening, but it wouldn't be effective until
Yep.
the incentive agreement. Yeah,
I
that would
still-
be, that would work too.
I'd still like to see the language, though.
Yeah.
I know, yeah,
No,
so,
we're going to go over it anyway,
It would all get done at
but
the same
that's
time.
fine.
but yeah, I'd like that they can move forward with this, and so that we can move forward with the purchase and development. So I'll ask a board member McCray to remove it from the table.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye. You got it.
Okay, this one's short, folks. The terms of the purchase and sale agreement, you've had that agreement ahead of you. The main points to make is the purchase price is $10. The closing day is 60 days from the effective date of the purchase and development agreement. It's important to note that the purchase and sale agreement is not tied to the turf agreement that we just discussed. So once they close on the property, they will own the property, whether or not the project gets built.
I thought we just decided that we do tie it to the phase 1.
Stating it as written.
Oh, okay,
Right, as written.
okay.
And so, but this is the condition would be effective, assuming what you had discussed previously was that the effective date of the purchase and sale agreement would be upon approval of the TURFA for Phase 1.
That sounds
This
great.
is, my discussion here is saying that once they own the property, subject to this agreement, it's not tied to the project and all of the things we talked about before, except as follows. So I just want to be clear.
Yes, I'm clear that the property, once we agree to Phase 1 of the TIFR,
Yep.
they have the property.
Correct.
Free and clear with the 2 years that they build a park if nothing happens on Phase 1.
Correct. And then they have the right of first refusal is if they ever sell the property separately, which is probably unlikely since they're going to do it in 2 parcels, that the CRA could buy it back for the cost paid, which would be $10, and the cost of improvements.
What are those potential costs of improvements?
It's the park improvements, any walkways, benches, and landscapings, and landscaping, and we have an exhibit reflecting exactly what we think will go there in the event we don't construct. In
So,
a very
but
unlikely
the
event.
issue that we have or that I have is that if you sell Phase 1 of the project, Phase 1 of the new PCN of the property, if you do combine the two, we are not allowed to purchase that back or get the value of that.
So you're saying that, yes, it would have to be if we tried to solely spin off your parcel, the CRA's parcel, then you would have the option to take it back and make yourself where you were before whole.
Right.
But if we assign, it's going to be more of an assignment. If we assigned the overall Phase 1 parcel to the developer and they commenced, then you are correct. You would not be able to exercise any right of first refusal under that circumstance.
Correct, but it's before. So the point is that we're trying to make sure that you don't sell the vacant lot with the park as one parcel, so that you don't. I'm trying to say that if you sell the top half of the property with the parcel, we still have that option to buy it if there's no commencement of any sort of Phase 1.
So
If this is making any sense?
let me make sure, can I try to restate
Yes.
it? I think what I'm hearing you ask is a right of first refusal on the Phase 1 property, which would include, if they tried to sell the Phase 1 property
Or whatever that purchase price is, that you would buy the entire
prior to
parcel.
commencement of construction.
Well-
Prior to commencement of construction? Is that what I heard you say?
Correct. It's almost in the sense is that they're not getting the property for $10 and the value of selling the whole lot. So it's
Well, I think there are really, as a right of first refusal, you have 2 options. You either have a right of first refusal for your piece, or you have a right of first refusal for the entire piece. So as an example, if they decided not to do Phase 1 and they sold it to a developer that was going to do this development scenario or any other, which they'd have to come back to you for approval anyway, that you would have the right to pay for it, but you'd be paying for it at the same basis that they're offering. So let's say it was $5 million or $10 million, then the city would be offering to buy the entire parcel for that amount. I mean, if that's something that you want, I don't think we have an objection to it. It's whether we sell to you or to some other.
The issue I have is that you are profiting off the property that we're selling to you for $10.
Well, but you have to remember that we have right now a development scenario to do 231 units, 8,500 square feet.
Absolutely, and this is worst case scenario.
Right. And so your interest is getting at least that development or something greater. And whether we do it or we assign it to another entity and they do it, you're still getting what you want, which is redevelopment of the site.
They could present a completely different site plan and.
Well, but then they'd have to come back to the city for approval.
But
anyway.
that still allows you to sell that property free and clear, even if they come back with something that we don't particularly desire.
Well, they would lose, but remember, they would lose the TIF because the TIF is associated with this development scenario. So you're going to.
Could we, just
Yes.
listening to both sides, something that could be done is, what I'm hearing from the board is a concern that the property is being sold for this price to foster the development that they're supporting in the TURFA agreement. And the concern is if you flip it to, if the developer combines it, flips it to another entity who doesn't have any intention of building or abiding by the TRFA, then there's this value received by the developer for the CRA property that was given to them for a low price. So potentially what could be done is there could be some sort of payback negotiated where if they sell to somebody who is not subject to the TRFA for phase one, so if it's a different party than has been assigned the TRFA, there would be.
So the point is that the property goes with phase one of the TRFA,
yes.
and that if the phase one of TRFA does not get built by developer, that the developer cannot sell the property for profit without the first right of refusal for us to buy that property or our parcel back.
That is a way to do it.
Well, if I can, and I'm trying to identify the page number, but at one point we talked about a deed restriction. Did the deed restriction get removed from the purchase and sale agreement?
No, it's in there. The deed restriction requires that the plaza be constructed.
And so if we don't, and I think that, I'm trying to find the page.
So what you're saying is that if phase one doesn't get built, we get the plaza, and then if you try to sell that new parcel, we still can buy the plaza back.
Well, you get the plaza. So anybody that would be buying it from us would be getting a plaza. They'd be buying a plaza. They'd be buying a piece of property that is deed restricted with a plaza. So there wouldn't be any additional or residual value.
I see what you're saying. And so if they want to remove that deed restriction, they'd
have to come back to you,
Got
and you
it.
could negotiate with them whatever you wanted to at that time.
Okay.
And
Because
actually,
it-
I think the
so that-
CRA
that-
Board actually had raised that, and that was one of the things that we did in response. Or
That-
it may
that-
have been here, I'm not
Yes,
sure.
that makes sense of the deed restriction,
Right.
so that if their plaza gets built, that it doesn't get torn down.
For somebody else to come back and,
That's fine.
throw a restaurant there or something else.
Okay. And if, I guess the last thing I have is that for the plaza, is that what, do we have enforcement for the building of that plaza in the sense of, do we have to, is that covered under the prevailing party attorney's fees if we have to file a lawsuit to get that built after the 2 years?
If it's not, and I can't remember the express provision in here, but if it's not covered, we can put that in here.
Okay.
The deed restriction is also a provision of the agreement. So because the attorney's fee provision applies to the provisions of the agreement, it would be covered in my estimation.
Okay.
So if you can clarify, because I got kind of lost in your exchange here, Chair. So what the deed restriction says is that we basically, if the developer were to sell the land, we get, please explain.
So-
If you don't mind, I'm sorry,
Oh,
I'm going to
with
ask
Tara.
Tara
Yeah.
to explain.
Go ahead.
Okay, if the developer, the purchaser in this case, fails to construct consistent with the TRFA, they are required by the deed restriction that'll be recorded as part of the special warranty deed that's an attachment to this agreement to construct the public plaza. And I'm looking for the exact language.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
But how
The
does that,
link says in the
how does
event-
that
you want
address?
me to read it?
It's,
In the event grantee fails to commence construction of the development of the project as provided in the purchase and development agreement, grantee shall be obligated to construct the public plaza on the property containing benches, walkways, landscaping, irrigation, and lighting in accordance with Exhibit C. And we can tighten this up a little, but this runs with the land. It's recorded against the property so that land, that real estate where the plaza is forever a plaza unless we come back to you to obtain a release of this restriction.
Basically meaning that it should quell the concern that they can't sell that and flip it and get a profit, or is that two different conversations?
I think what they're saying to you is if they flip it to someone who doesn't want to do the project as approved in the TRFA, though not specifically tied to it here, would have to come back to you to release the deed restriction. So the future I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The future value would be diminished by that deed restriction and the need to come back to you to release it. That's how they're addressing that issue with you.
Unless they wish to purchase a park.
Correct. It's almost in the sense is that if they want to have spend $300,000 to remove the deed restriction, the CRA can profit from that $300,000.
And we've clarified that we'll add to the contract, the attorney's fees provision includes enforcement of that deed restriction, and this warranty deed will be clear to attach the appropriate site plan and reference the development as in the TURFA, so that it'll be very clear they're tied together.
Oh, so to be clear, if construction doesn't happen within 2 years, this is what they give us. But if in the event that we're within the 2 years, but they decide to sell the property for a profit, the person who receives it cannot do anything other than
Because they'd have to
Build
go
a
to phase one of the project that we have already agreed to that is restricted in the deed.
And they are
language of-
bound by the same timeframes that
The language of the restriction says that the only way to move the park would be for the construction of phase one, and we'll make that clear in this warranty deed.
comfortable with this language.
This serves the purpose of bringing it back, whether that is appropriate for you all. I mean, I'm comfortable that that's what that accomplishes. If you,
I'm comfortable.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we can, Tara, are we able to vote on item C and D now? Or item D, we're going to come back next month. Item C, we can agree regarding with the deed restriction and the effective date of the phase one. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. So right now, I'd like a motion for consideration of purchase and development agreement for the CRA owner property located at 222 North Federal Highway, also known as the Ocean One Project, with, as amended per the discussion from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then can I may I have a motion to table item D
So moved.
to next, the motion to table is to next meeting in July.
Second.
All right. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Seeing none, motion is tabled. Moving on to item E and F.
Motion to remove from the table E.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
And so, Michael, regarding, need a few seconds, because we're also, item F is on the same subject, if not correct.
I'd like to blend those together.
I would like to blend those two together with the, and is there any sort of order that we would like to receive them being presented, or
Well,
first
I
come,
think
first serve, or last come, first serve?
I think as staff and legal, we'd just like to make the suggestion that the, prior to presentations, that the board, perhaps, if there are any comments by the board or direction by the board on the treatment of this item, whether that be, again, presentations made by developers and then your comments prior to that. I think there are some areas that need to be clarified with regard to things like, is it a senior housing development you desire? Is it a multifamily? Are you interested in one source of funding options or all of the options? Rather than having presentations done and then the
Okay.
discussion. If you feel that's
Yeah,
staff's
I feel
suggestion.
that's important for us to figure out for the board, because this is letter of intent and not an RFP.
Right, it's an unsolicited.
So this is all unsolicited for this project, whereas last year we had the RFP. Regarding the items of whether it be mixed age or 55 plus, whether which funding available, whereas, a lot of them for the non-competitive requires a $450,000 or $350,000 investment from the CRA. which, it seems that was not allocated. So I'd like Board Member Casella, if you'd like to begin, what you would like to see for this project before we hear any presentations.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, I was a little disappointed. We got some amendments to some of these proposals as late as this afternoon. And we're talking a potential multi-million-dollar type project here, which is the CRA is basically funding. Out of all the proposals that I've looked through, none of them are a good business deal for the CRA.
No.
They're not. And I'm going to recommend in form of a motion that, we've got a big ask from the city. We've got a big commitment to this town square project, as we talked about last night, and our obligation as far as CRA funds. I'm going to make the motion that we put this property out on an RFP versus having this discussion tonight.
And so that it will extend it and possibly, but I'm going to let the rest of the board speak before we vote, have a second. Board Member Romulus, do you have any comments?
I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say before I comment.
Okay. Vice
Yeah,
Chair?
I'd support the recommendation from Board Member Casello for a variety of reasons. Again, if you look over the variety of offers, they span the spectrum. There are offers that include all 55 and older housing units. There are offers that include no 55 and older housing units. We've never discussed that topic. There's offers that literally yield revenue for the CRA, and there are offers that cost us upwards of $10 million. We've never defined what scope of investment the CRA is willing to put into this project. Since it was an unsolicited letter of intent, we've never defined any parameters other than this is to be affordable housing, and that leaves a variety of questions at hand. I think that, a letter of intent was submitted, and the request financially was fairly high, and it led to competitors coming in and undercutting that initial high request from the original letter of intent. And just because people have come in with better offers financially doesn't mean that's still the best offer for the CRA. We haven't put this out there to the public. We noticed the disposal of the land, which is our legal obligation, but we did not say there's a potential for $10 million of incentives in this project. We have not even agreed whether or not we're willing to put in 5 or 10 or whatever the amount is, So, again, going along with what Board Member Casello said, I think that, we need to have a discussion tonight to define the parameters of what this project would be. I don't think that we can accept any letter of intent not having defined the project. The accepting of the letter of intent allows the CRA to enter into negotiations with that party. They have no clue what we're looking for. And again, some of these, whether it's, what I just said right now, that it could be 55 and older, or it could be no age restriction. I've voiced opposition to that before. Board Member Romulus has voiced concerns or opposition to the 55 and older component before, if I'm remembering correctly. So there's a lot of information that needs to be hashed out before we can enter into negotiation. Remember, we went from trying to get this property built for a number of years through tax credits, which would have yielded revenue for the CRA, not cost us a penny. And now there's offers on the table to spend upwards of $10 million without a discussion in between. So I don't know how you make a financial decision to say, well, we're going to do something that costs us nothing, to we're going to do something that costs us $10 million. There needs to be a more detailed discussion pertaining to this. So I'm in agreement, like I said, with Board Member Casello. I'm not prepared to vote for any of these proposals, especially due to the fact that, as he also cited, two of the developers and their subsequent proposals were literally emailed to us today at 10 or 11 a.m. So we're talking about making decisions on new proposals that I have not sat down and spoke to with legal or the CRA director. I'm uncomfortable making those decisions based on what would now be about 10 hours of basic knowledge without any conference with my legal counsel or my director.
Board Member McCray.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and go. I'm also baffled. I'm baffled, by the other individuals who came in late in the game and put their on the table. My take is that, St. John had enough initiative to step to the plate and said, this is something that we want to do. This is something that this community needs. And after it hit the newspaper saying, St. John is interested in developing this project, here it looked like grandma, brothers and sisters came out of the woodwork and said, we want to be a part of it too. To put it out for an RFP when we already got information on all three now, I'm thinking it'd be kind of like a disservice. I'm just saying, because everybody now know what everybody is trying to do. And I'm just saying it's going to be like unfair, although y'all say you don't want to make any money. My whole take is that property has stood over life for about 20-some years. Nobody's done anything except let grass grow on it and say, what? They'll develop it whenever they can get. But here you got a group that said, we have a foresight. We want to get over there and do something and put something on there. And now we then gave them all, said, go ahead. Then we came back and said, let's give them a 30-day wait period. We did that. Now we coming back saying put it out for an RFP. And I think it's just unfair. I'm just going to be honest. I'm in favor, still let's move it forward. Whatever it takes for St. John to do this. Like I said, I have nothing to gain or lose. This should be the first group that we look at. If they don't come through, then look at the other two who's at the table. That's the way I see it.
So Board Member Romulus, he has to go last. For me, I live in the Northeast, and so this is something that, it's an eyesore that I have to walk by quite a bit. With St. John's requesting, to move forward and having this, coming up with the non-competitive financing package with the payment over 10 or 20 years and all the different options. My thought process is that, we don't necessarily have the money after doing this year's budget for any sort of payment of anything more than $40,000 is what we're looking at. And so that's kind of where I would ask the board is saying that, we know that $700,000 is going into the Sarah Sims. This is across the street. Would you be willing to move money from the Sarah Sims to this project so that something gets built regardless, and that if they win the tax credits, we can move that money back? This is, discussion for us. That's kind of where I'm looking in for. Regarding the other developments, I spoke with St. John's and Centennial, and the main difference that I have is that this is going to make profit for whoever gets to develop it. That's not even a question. And the fact that St. John's and Roundstone put the initiative to come forward with this plan is kind of why I'm leaning towards them, because if the profit goes to St. John's, that's the community that we live in. Why would we want to go elsewhere? Because we are already talking about building wealth in the community. This is an opportunity to build wealth in the community, and so that's kind of where it doesn't seem like we are able to do anything but the 20-year option because of the lack of funding. However, if we are able to, I'd ask Commissioner McRae, is the community willing to, hold back on Sarah Sims for one more year so that we can get this 100-plus affordable rental unit?
Remember, next year we have to eat $3.7 million for Town Square.
Yep. Yep. And the last thing that I want to put is that I spoke with my neighbors, and they are all for the 55-plus. There are areas in the Cottage District and other vacant land, but having a mixed age of 100-plus units, I think, is going to not benefit the community. With 55-plus, it does allow up to 25% of mixed use, so that means 1 in 5 will be under 55. And so I will leave it now to Board Member Romulus.
So we've been, kind of back and forth on this, and again, we have this proposal here before us that, for a very long time, there's really nothing been going on this property, and then all of a sudden, everybody wants to court our beautiful little, city because of all these different major happenings going on. I commented at the past commission meeting, or I'm sorry, CRA board meeting, that I wanted to see a proposal that would allow for both parties to come out ahead and to allow for us to really be able to say we both won on this. And to be frankly honest, St. John, I really didn't see that happen. This is really something that we have this property. This is a business decision in terms of we want to make sure that this property is built and it can be sustainable. It can be something that can allow for people to live there for years on end. At this point in time, the proposal that I see, and again, I'm willing to give preference toward St. John and the community because of the fact that they, went ahead and said they're willing to do something, but the numbers don't really work. So with that being said, what I'm willing to ask for the board, and I've actually had an entity reach out to me and ask, would we allow them to possibly come to the table and put out an offer, and that is the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. And with their financing, with their bonds that they have available, they would be actually willing to work within a budget that would be feasible for the CRA. They would be willing to partner with the community to make something that actually works for everyone, and I believe that would be something that could allow for us to do something with this site, make it possible, make it work, but also, again, financially make it be feasible for everyone involved. So with that being said, my comments are to either, allow for a 30-day extension to allow for the Palm Beach County Housing Authority to give us something that could financially work and be a little bit more financially feasible, or B, let this kind of be more precise and actually create something that works for all of us in terms of we get to dictate and decide how much money we're willing to spend, how much money we want to allocate, and just send this out to RFP, because this really actually went a little haywire after all of a sudden developers realized that we were willing to give away the land. And so we lost control over the process, and this really just didn't allow for us to get the numbers that we like. So again, my proposals tonight are to either allow for a 30-day extension to see what the Palm Beach County Housing Authority has to say, to partner up along with the community, the leaders that are in the community that want to see this happen, because I don't really think that it matters whether it's, St. John or others. I believe that the benefit is for the community of District 2. So if there's a partnership that's able to happen, I believe that can happen. And second, we just say, let's make the parameters more clear and just go out to RFP. So those are my comments on this, and we can have a more open dialogue and discussion.
Well, we're going to go in reverse order now. Okay. My comments regarding the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, it is, an appointed entity, and they also have a lot of vacant area within the District 2. So allowing them to have another more property for them not to build on, I'd rather them build on their property first before we give them any sort of an opportunity to, as for your second option regarding the RFP, the issue is the timing aspect. Are we, how much longer is it going to be vacant? I'm for moving forward, and that's kind of, hear the presentation and then pick which one we want to move forward. Commissioner McRae.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad you said about the Housing Authority, because I have been saying to them all along, what are you all going to do with your property across Cherry Hill? And you're talking about an eyesore. We ride through there and look, and all of a sudden, now, Commissioner Romulus, you might not know where Cherry Hill is, but anyway, just because it's on Seacrest Boulevard, you want to give it to them for Seacrest. But I'm just saying they have property that they have been sitting on and have not done anything with except sit there, and they need to move. I'm just saying, because we tore down everything when the hurricane came, and they know that they own this property, and they did not move forward. And all of a sudden, because we have this property now, prime property, you want to say, let's give it to them when they need to take care of home first. And I'm sorry, they need to build on their own land, develop that, and then come back and say, this is what we can do.
As a point of clarification, I do know where Cherry Hill is. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Vice Chair Katz?
Yeah, raising points that Board Member Romulus just did. I've spoken to one or two. I've spoken to one in detailed conversation and the second one in passing from the County Commission, who just kind of chastised the Palm Beach Housing Authority for not being proactive in addressing the issue of needs for workforce and affordable housing. So we stand at a position right now where the county and the Palm Beach County Housing Authority are kind of under a mandate to start funding these types of projects. It's not a matter of denying the Palm Beach Housing Authority, Palm Beach County Housing Authority, the opportunity to do this because they own other land. They will provide funds for this. They will literally reduce our out-of-pocket costs. With regards to giving preference to the first person to make an unsolicited offer, If we had accepted the original offer, the original letter of intent, that would have cost us $5 million more than the highest offer that is currently on the table from that same party. So if we had jumped at the opportunity to embrace that initial letter of intent when we were told we should by the party, we would literally have burned $5 million of taxpayer funds from the CRA in a garbage can, because now the highest offer that is on the table from St. John's is $8.1 million. So the fact that an offer that came in less than 90 days ago has fluctuated by $5 million, that is not a sum that can be overlooked, merits more scrutiny. That's a fact. And I don't think you calling bullshit right now is changing the fact. He said it, literally, to me. I heard you.
Excuse me, this is, that's
I don't think it's
outside.
appropriate to call that. It's a fact right now. Tell me right now that the out-of-pocket cost to the CRA from the original letter of intent, the $450,000 a month, the $1 million up front, and the value of the land and the interest we would have had to pay on that over 20 years would not have equaled upwards of it, if not in excess of $13 million. That is a fact. That is a fact. And now by reducing the terms of that loan, we save $5 million. I think if we had, again, accepted the bid or the offer as it was, we would have just thrown away $5 million. The point here is, as my esteemed colleague here, Board Member McCray says, we need to be responsible to this community. And the fact is that we cannot afford to do Sarah Sims right now and this project, but what we can do is Sarah Sims and have a company or the housing authority come in and complete this project for a much lower cost. We can have the best of both worlds. And I know this has been caught up dramatically over the past couple months, and there is some obligation to give it to a long-standing member of the community. That's not how government works. You don't get to give preference purely based on, in spite of all the facts that would oppose, your personal relationship or a city's personal relationship with an organization. Financially speaking, those proposals are not the best deal for the taxpayers. In terms of running the property, the developer tends or plans to pull out of that property in short order, leaving it in the charge of St. John's. And frankly, they don't have the experience, literally, running a property like this. So we're talking about a developer coming in, taking profit, walking away, and leaving a property that the taxpayers have funded to the tune of potentially $8 million into an entity that has no experience running a property of residential scope like this. I agree with, again, Board Member Casello. I agree with Board Member Romulus. From day one, this letter of intent was submitted, and we have not had a single discussion about the scope of this project, the investment, the type of stuff that we just mentioned at the beginning of this item. We need to have that discussion. It needs to go to a competitive RFP. Commissioner McCray or Board Member McCray talked about fairness. I think fairness is allowing people to compete for something. Fairness is not saying the first person to ask gets it. To me, that's not fair. Competition is fair. If St. John's wants to submit a proposal to that RFP, should we go in that direction? By all means, submit it. And if it's competitive and it achieves the goals set forth by this board, then I would have no problem, no hesitation for 1 second in voting for it. But right now, as these offers stand, I don't particularly like any of the offers. There's one that buys the property outright, which means that we are out from under the obligation of paying for it. We are out from the obligation of seeking tax credits because they would do that on their own. But I don't see offers on the table that return the greatest, yield for the taxpayers. I want to build Sarah Sims. I want to build this property. I want to build the property on MLK. If we overspend on this, we risk jeopardizing one or two of the other projects. If we do this responsibly, then all three could come online theoretically within the next 12 months. And now you're talking about three goals that have been sought after and fought after by the people who live in the heart of Boynton, the commissioner and board member for the heart of Boynton. We can get everything if we do this properly. And I understand that personal sentiment has clouded that because of the involvement of a well-respected organization from the community. But we have an obligation, a constitutional obligation, to vet this process out and get the best deal for the taxpayer. And I think that the RFP sets forth that possibility. Accepting any of these offers right now, I think, denies the taxpayers their right to a fair distribution of their finances. That's my opinion.
Board Member Casello.
To the director, if we put this out for RFP, can we also have that talk with the housing authority?
I would certainly reach out to any and all interested parties to let them know that we are doing an RFP and the availability of it and the as anyone, what the criteria of the RFP is going to be and the deadlines and what have you, that it wouldn't be excluded from any entity that does affordable housing. So, yes.
I think Commissioner Katz touched it, that the county now is really taking up this affordable housing issue, and I think they'd be more apt to, help us along here. So my motion stands to put this out to RFP.
Second that motion.
Okay, Board Member Romulus, do you have any final comments?
No, simply that, again, that we have the opportunity here to really create something that would also be fair and financially feasible for both parties, and that's what I really want to see and do. So, in terms of clarification as to what an RFP means, simply an RFP is the opportunity for all these developers who've proposed, who've offered their intent on building on this property to just simply do the same thing, but with our parameters in mind. That's all this is. There's nothing that changes. There's no monetary obligation that has to be put on the line. Simply just we now give parameters to what the letters of intent will look like instead of just them free falling out of the sky at 11 o'clock this morning prior to our meeting. So that's what I think we that's what I prefer to see.
Well, there's been motion and second.
Discussion still.
Okay.
My whole take is that, talking about fairness and all of this, and I'm just saying this thing was on the table, and that we would not have done what we did last night with Town Square, went out and gave all the money away. I'm sorry, we'd had money to do something else here in this city. I'm just saying we look at not the people who really deserve. Our District 2 has been paying in, and waiting, and we have not really received anything. Now they want to put everything downtown again, and then like we're the stepchild. I understand what you all are saying, but we ask that we be treated fairly when we come to this table. And for saying to give it out to the Housing Authority had property for 20 years and have not done anything with it. I like to see what they could do with their property first, and then if we want to say, put something over here, take care of home first. That's my thing. You all can vote.
Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes 3-2 to have an RFP issued regarding 700 Seacrest Boulevard.
Should we have that discussion right now?
Yes.
As to
Yeah.
the parameters?
Please.
I'm going to let people walk out first.
Let them go.
And I like to, no, we don't need a recess.
Business.
Come on. Come on.
All right. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We will discuss old business item G, status of the 2.97 acre project site known as MLK Junior South.
I think the executive director has something to add and seek some direction from you on what should be in the request for proposals.
So the board, would you like to do it individually and have the executive director convene all of our ideas, or do you want to discuss it now?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You asked the board a question.
Yeah. I'm under the impression that we each do it individually, what we would like to see.
I think when we meet with the director one-on-one, we can put down our thoughts and ideas, and he can compile a list, and then we can have that discussion over that list.
Okay, and next month.
Next month, that'd be fine.
Okay. So, is that enough direction?
Yes.
Okay, great. We will let you know. Moving on to item G. Is there an update on the status from New Rock? Did they leave?
Just that they've sent a letter that's terminated. They did not receive a funding award, and they have submitted their termination letter. And we'd want it acknowledged by the board this evening, and the contract will be terminated, and the deposit will be returned.
Okay. Thank you.
So now the MLK site is free and clear.
Correct.
All right.
And I guess the comment that I'd like to have is that Do we also want to have an RFP for that, or do we want to wait on that as well?
Let's throw it out there. Let's put it in an RFP. It doesn't cost us anything to put an RFP out there.
Well, it's staff time.
Well,
but yeah.
staff time, but
We want to commit, I know it's rollover funding, but there's $1 million sitting from this year that'll go and spend on that property. Do we want to commit to re-up the allocation in next year's budget when that million rolls over? Assuming it does? Just to show a commitment to this project?
So for the MLK corridor
Yeah. Well,
That project, that site.
the property.
or the site, because that funding was going to go to
Yes.
the Seacrest site. So there's two different line items for those two things.
Yes, I think that's a decision that if you have limited funding, if you have $1 million and the submittals from the LOIs that you've received range from 500,000 to $1 million, and even if you don't have to give that up front, it may be money that you want to use to cover costs of site planning, or utilities or something, to try to split it into two different projects at the same time, going through potentially the same process. I think you might, choose one or the other at this moment. All of those contracts with the existing and adjacent property owners it's kind of a start from scratch process now for the indie developer, with the obvious owners on the MLK South site. I think.
So regarding the purchase and development of any of the MLK Junior South site, do you have a list of those purchase and development agreements that we have with the current property owners, so that if we want to buy some of the smaller parcels, we can use those funds to land bank them?
There's only two owners of the parcels that made up MLK Junior South project, and those, there's three, but only two were actually committed to be part of that project, where the Ocean Breeze is 100% owned by us, and we direct the future of it on the immediate side. We could sit down with the property owners, Loran LLC and the Bells family on their properties, and see where they are with potentially getting a developer to go through that process again. It doesn't hurt or cost anything but time and meetings for that. That's no problem. But I think you're going to need some commitment on their part to really make it successful.
Correct. Without their input, we cannot have an MLK Junior South site.
That's right.
So the issue is before the board is that I'd like to keep that money there to see if we can, is the board willing to purchase those MLK Junior South properties with that $1 million, knowing that it's more of a land banking use of the funds, not building?
My take is, first of all, I don't see any point of us land banking any more land. I'm just saying, you got the $1 million, we already going to be strapped for cash. I'm just saying, we need to just let things play out now.
Okay, so we'll have to do future developments as future developments work.
I think so. That would be
Okay.
my recommendation. I don't think I would want to tie that money up into acquisition on that and not have it available for a project. But with regard, kind of back to this RFP and meeting with me and giving me individual ideas on some important things like what type of development, what kinds of funding would you like to see, kind of the parameters of the RFP, I'm happy to do that, bring those all parameters back in July, and then form an agreement that would then be back in August and released for 30 days to September or October. And now we're back to picking a developer right on top of the application deadlines, as we've done in the past, as opposed to gaining 30 days by coming up with some board agreed upon criteria that you'd like to see. I want you to know both. I'm happy to do either.
Absolutely.
It's your policy to determine.
Thank you for letting us know that.
Yes, sir.
So regarding that aspect of it, do we want to narrow some of the things? Can we have a consensus regarding it be 55 plus or mixed age? I would vote for, as I stated earlier, that it's 55 plus only regarding Ocean Breeze East site. Is there any comment from the board?
leaning more to affordable housing.
Yeah, I'm not particularly in favor of any age restrictions.
Okay, so as of currently stands, it seems that there's 3 that says all ages or 55 plus, no restriction regarding what type of development there. The next
So
is
is that what is the desire of the board to be written in the RFP? Which of those?
affordable housing, either one.
Affordable senior or affordable multifamily?
Correct.
Which is exactly what has just happened this evening with the LOIs. Do we
That's
want
my position is no to 55 and older, not either or. That again,
Okay.
that's
It's all
just-
affordable.
That's just one. If there are two
So,
others who agree
yes,
with
it's
that,
all
but-
affordable. So, Board Member McCray, do you have an opinion on 55 or all ages?
All ages.
So to be clear at this point, what we're doing is we're drafting the language for the RFP for MLK South. Is that what we're doing?
No,
You're
this
not
is for
drafting
Ocean-
language because I
This is Ocean
can't
Breeze
draft the
East.
language, but you're giving criteria to be in it, or you can wait and I'll bring back all of these questions in July. It's
This-
completely up to you.
This is for Ocean Breeze East or MLK?
Ocean Breeze East.
Why don't we take a step back and catch
Right.
our
Okay.
breath a little
Very
bit,
good.
and we'll meet you one-on-one instead of, I think,
Yeah,
a lot
So-
of emotion
I'm
up here.
wrong.
No,
Okay. I
the
thought we
reason
were-
why he was asking is because of the
The
deadline.
timelines, I understand that.
And so, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Timelines of what exactly?
The Florida Housing Tax Credits options,
Right.
so that, go forward. All right.
Okay, thank
So
you.
will that give us enough time to meet with those funding timelines?
We might not be able to apply for the 9%, only the 4%.
It will just accelerate the RFP to try to make those deadlines. It's okay.
I want to give us every opportunity to get free money that we can get. So I'm saying if we need to,
You have time to do that. We will write the RFP to be as accelerated, given the fact that we have this interest that we do. It should be a very simple document. It should be a very simple required response of documents. And I think that that's something that is not a 90-day RFP. It's a 30-day or a 20-day perhaps, but 30 minimum I would do, which
Okay.
also matches your public notice criteria. So we'll
And
bring it
we-
back in July.
and this is regarding the Ocean Breeze East property.
Ocean Breeze East only.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, can you, Michael,
we
so
can-
we're going to move forward with the updated timeline, and so you will have meetings with us individually regarding what we are looking for the RFP.
I will, and you'll have all those options
Okay.
for July, and you can insert those that are voted on into the document.
Thank you.
We'll do it like a placeholder.
Item H, discussion and consideration of the CRA Executive Director position. Tara?
Yes, included in your backup is a draft employment agreement for the executive director position for Mike Simon. If you have any questions, there's three terms that, one of which I've left blank, which is obviously for board discussion, and that would be the salary. Mr. Simon has provided you with his request and some background on his accomplishments. And at your request, I have provided you with some information that should have been sent to you, but also included in front of you tonight. One is the Boynton Beach CRA position classification and salary ranges table. That gives you the range for the executive director in the budget. That was provided by Susan. And the second is the salary schedule for all employees, the current salaries of all employees of the CRA for your consideration. I was also asked if I could find out what the Delray CRA Executive Director's salary is. I was not able to verify the current salary, but I did find information that in 2015, at the time that CRA Director was put in that position, he was hired at a salary of approximately $133,000, which if you escalated that at 3% increases would bring it up to current salary of about $140,000. So with that said, I think it's up to the board to determine what salary you feel is appropriate, and/or ask me any other questions. I have two more issues that I need to address, but if there are any other questions about the contract.
Commissioner McCray, Board Member McCray.
Thank you. Tara, I have one. At our meeting this afternoon, I requested, what was this package and benefit package, and nobody given me that information.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I do have that information for you. If a salary of $140,000 was determined, his benefits package would be about $15,000, and his retirement benefits would be about $28,000.
Is his retirement part of the city's pension or a 401k?
Vicki? Would,
A part of the city's.
It's part of a it's a 401K, is that correct?
Sure.
401B, thank you.
Well, let me go ahead and be the first one to jump off on this because, first of all, I was the one that said, let's wait until this month to do it because this was the 6 months. And my whole take is, and people think that I'm, being facetious and everything, but I'm not. I'm just saying, anytime that we can hire, and you all can just get mad if you want to, you could hire a person right off the street, say a director of economic development, and give them $137,000, no budget, no citizens, no budget, no employees, you have no budget, and then, and think that this is fine. I like people to be held accountable. Mr. Simon is being held accountable because he has employees, he has a budget, he has to answer to us, and this is why, I'm just saying whatever amount that we decide, I'm going to be in favor of it, and I can hardly wait to get off of the interim director so that I can call him Director Simon. Thank you.
All right. For me, the issue I see was regarding the email, regarding the increase from 125 to 140 and the ability to have the side job regarding the realtor.
correct, that was another issue I was going to bring up. Mr. Simon does have a realtor's license. There's a term in the draft contract that says he wouldn't have any outside of employment. Mr. Simon is just seeking the ability to use that realtor license to do transactions for individuals that would obviously not be doing business with the CRA. That would be a requirement. So that's for your consideration as well.
Yeah, for me, I think it's not both of whether the increase in salary and having the side job. It's one or the other. The 125,000 having the ability to be a realtor on the side, or the 140 and not having the ability to be a realtor on the side. And is there any comments from the board regarding that?
I just want to ask Mr. Simon, this is going to be a stupid question. Are your license current?
They are.
Thank you, sir. That's all I need to hear. Thank you.
And because, I don't necessarily want to go into the money that he's making on the side. However, having the side job does mean that there's other obligations that may affect him during the work week, that he has things on his mind. And so I don't necessarily agree to having the increased salary when he has the ability to make money elsewhere.
I don't think you can tie a side job into what we want to pay a executive director at a CRA. What Mr. Simon does he could come in with other things on his mind. He might be tired that day or whatever. I don't think that selling real estate on the side, and I don't think he does all that much real estate on the side. I have a realtor's license. I know how it is out there. And he's already stated that there'd be nothing involved with CRA properties or districts. So I'm comfortable. Whatever Mr. Simon does on the side, that's what Mr. Simon does in his private life. That's his business. And then I don't think it affects his job performance at CRA.
And so you agree to the increase request of 140,000?
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you that when I first met Mr. Simon, he was kind of kept in the. He was like a mushroom, kind of kept in the dark down there at the CRA. And I think my first exposure to him, we had a nose to nose down there at the Intercoastal, and I forget what the subject matter was. And but I'll tell you, in this last 6 months, it's been a breath of fresh air down there, and I think the staff will relate to that. How he has handled the situations that. It's been a tough stretch for him. This last 6 months has not been easy for the CRA, and he's handled it professionally. I think that he's a great listener. I think he's a good leader, and I think he's a guy that finds solutions to the problems. He's not a yes and no type guy. No, you can't do this, or yes, you can do this. I think he gives us options and lets us use our better judgment on what we think is good, and I appreciate that. That's not something we had in the past. So I'm all in with Mr. Simon. I'm in with the 140,000. I think that's a fair, equitable price to pay for somebody of his experience and knowledge. The car allowance, I'm for that. I think we gave it to the last director. I think that he should be affordable that. So as this contract stands right now, I'm in favor of.
I am. before we move up further with, discussing this contract, I'm going to offer a motion that Mr. Simon be removed from interim director to be called Director Simon. That's first.
I'll second that.
I mean,
Is
can
that an
we,
item that we had?
I think that's the contract we're talking about now.
But when you start doing that, then you could say now he is a director. We could start addressing it as a director.
Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Michael, now you're Director Simon.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
6-1, 6-0.
Yeah.
Now we can move.
So now we
on.
can move forward with
Contract.
Director Simon's contract.
Yeah.
Do you, Board Member McCray, do you have a comment regarding salary?
I'm just saying, 140, that's what Board Member Costello said. I'm even comfortable with 135. I'm just saying, he has earned every penny, and I'm just saying, I could see giving somebody like this amount of money instead of somebody just running around. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Vice Chair?
Yeah, I support the contract as the language states. I've also pleasantly enjoyed the work underneath interim director Simon and look forward to him being director. And he's done everything he's done without an assistant, and now this gives him the ability to go and get that position filled, which means he'll only be able to accomplish more in this new title and new position, and with someone underneath his leadership assisting him. So I'm happy for him, and I'm proud of everything he's done over the course of this time.
And so do you have a number?
140 is what's requested.
Yep.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Board Member Romulus?
So my comments are to the budget, and I'm looking at our current salaries as they stand, and being that we have a vacancy for an assistant director that will need to be filled, what will that amount be once that person comes online?
I'm anticipating that it being in the range of 110 to 115 as a salary.
As just a salary.
As a salary.
Oh.
I've already begun that process, and I think the qualifications that we're looking for and the experience level that I think we need and you would want to have, it's certainly going to be in the range of 108 to 115.
Absolutely. So,
Minimum, that's...
right. Regarding the being a realtor on the side, I have no problem with you doing your hustle, Mike. So keep it up. I have no problem with that. Do what you got to do. But I would say potentially, maybe we bump it down to about 135. Right now you're at 125, and our past director left at 133, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I would make the suggestion that we start at 135 and we work our way up. I will second Board Member Costello's comments in terms of you are doing a fantastic job. I would still reiterate what I repeated when you first got appointed as interim director. Just work on condensing.
Very complex.
And I know you do great. Giving us the really vetted out, detailed explanation of everything, and that's a good thing. But just a little bit. So other than that, I really have nothing negative to say. My only thing is I'm hoping that your appointment now as director will give you a little bit more, for lack of a better word, I'm not going to use the word, but I want a little bit more assertion from your part now as director, and I kind of feel like you're walking a very, you were treading a line because you didn't want to overstep your boundaries, but I feel now as director you have a little bit of more leeway to really move this board in the direction that we're moving, and we're doing great things so far, and I commend you for the work you've done in the interim that you've been here, so congratulations.
Board Member Craig, you'll be next. I just want to speak. I think I will, since no one else has a problem with you being a realtor, I won't have a problem. Yeah, I won't have a problem either. I also will say the 135. I'm just very happy that one of the things I like best about Director Simon is that he actually lives within the city, and that he has grown up in the area, has a lot of emotional stake within the city of Boynton Beach and the CRA. And so that's why it really shows with his work of his caringness for what he does. And I really appreciate it. And so those are my comments. And Board Member McCraig?
Thank you. Director Simon, I'm going to make this comment very, very brief. You said that you had already started looking for an interim director. That means that you really have confidence, sir. I'm just saying, before we even promote you, you already didn't start looking. That's good. I'm in favor of the 135,000 as well.
Okay.
Starting.
Is that okay?
Offer motion, 135,000.
All right.
I will second that.
Can can I just make sure that the motion includes amendment to the agreement to permit Mr. Simon to operate under his real estate license as long as it doesn't conflict with his position here?
So moved.
Yes.
Yep. That's in
Second.
my,
All right. Is there any other items?
I believe there was something else regarding termination clause, whether
The
it's by
only-
majority
the
or
only other-
supermajority.
You had asked me to look at both agreements for the city manager and the executive director. The difference there is there was a supermajority to remove the city manager, and the executive director in the prior contract was just a majority. It's written for a majority vote to unilaterally terminate Mr. Simon from his position. So that's how it's currently written. If it's the will of the board, we can change it to supermajority or leave it at just majority.
I'm in favor of leaving it as is.
Okay. And also, there's also in the clause of independent annual review?
There is a required annual review to be held May of every year. Date was established in the contract. Termination provisions are made extremely clear about how the board must act in order to terminate and what determinations must be made. And then the consequences of a termination with or without cause to eliminate any confusion.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the supermajority. As you know, that last director we had, that it was a contentious 3-2 vote, and some of us took a lot of heat for that. I think that anytime we're going to terminate a director, there's going to be cause for it. It has to be some real cause for it. And I believe we had it last time. I'm in favor of a supermajority of 4-1 to terminate the director.
I'm okay with the majority, as in, that means that two people can disagree instead of just one.
I offer a motion that in the termination clause that we stay with the majority for termination and not the supermajority.
Vice Chair, do you have a comment regarding that?
I don't have strong feelings either way. I see the merit of both. I think as long as we do our job and we respect the director in his position, that, a majority is fine.
Okay. And so we have the three. So may I have Tara, you want to sum it up?
Yeah, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the contract as written with the amendment to allow Mr. Simon to operate his real estate license as long as it doesn't conflict with his responsibilities as director at a salary of $135,000 a year.
All right. And
Termination is the majority.
And termination is as written by majority vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Is it someone second it? Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you
Congratulations.
very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored.
And I
Thank
saw in
you
the
very
contract
much.
my name was misspelled, so
That was intentional.
with a PH instead of a V. So
Does that irk you?
it always does.
If it makes you feel better, back in the day, a long, long time ago, when I was in college, I was taking a class where if you misspelled a proper name, you got an F. And I did that once, I got an F, and I am so super careful, so that drives me crazy. I'm very sorry.
It's okay.
You got an F. That sounds great.
I didn't want to say that. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you all
moving on-
very much. Thank you.
So moving on to consideration of the contract for the 2017 Pirate Fest event management firm Standing Ovations LLC. We are on new business 14A.
Yes, Board. The item before you, we discussed a little bit in the budget item about the CRA using a event management firm to offset labor, operations management, volunteer management, and coordination of the event during the event last year and leading up to it. At that point, we were essentially at about a half of the need that we are this year. So I think that the proposal at $36,000 for the work that will be done between now and the event and post-event is right in line with the increase in the amount of duties that will be under the supervision of Standing Ovations LLC. They bring a tremendous amount of expertise and experience in the event management and planning arena, and I think it's only going to assist the event in growing to the next level even easier.
Has Standing Ovations assisted us in the past, or?
They have not. We did a RFP. We tried to select, put out for various bids. The company from last year also submitted, but the financial conditions and some of the terms in the contract we were uncomfortable with, and Standing Ovations really was very aggressive in seeking a joint partnership with us. As a matter of fact, he'd like to see it be a multi-year contract, but we'd like the option of bringing that back to you. There's a strong advantage to starting work after the event ends rather than waiting until now again. So
Yeah.
I understand the merit of having kind of a 2-year agreement, but I think what we would like to do is bring that back to you if it's acceptable to you and to Standing Ovations. We want to treat this as an annual, but bring it to you in, say, February or January rather than wait until now, so we can get a jump on that.
And one other comment that I'd like to add regarding Standing Ovations, are they going to help look for sponsors to help defray some of the CRA's costs, or are we not looking for sponsors of this event?
They are going to provide assistance in advancing our sponsorship efforts. We are going to use Amy, who has been here, a previous director, devote more time to sponsorship seeking. With the connections that Standing Ovation brings, I think they're going to open up a whole door and opportunity to utilize even vendor sponsors that we haven't been able to attract, and some other, just based on experience, it should open up a whole nother level. But yes, we always will seek sponsorships and continue to. We had about $20,000 worth last year, and we certainly hope that can grow.
Okay.
Michael, does that bring in any revenue for us, for the CRA?
The sponsorships offset the cost of the event.
So it's a break-even type thing?
It's a straight expense. No, it would no. It would if we brought in $20,000 worth of sponsorships instead of a $500,000 event, it's a $480,000.
Okay.
We are. It would be great to get to the point where we're kind of at a different level of sponsorship or break even. We don't charge. It's a free event, so. Our vendor fees are not exorbitant because we want to attract local vendors as well as out-of-state vendors. But the goal would be to certainly try to get a 20 or 25% level of expense on that sponsorship. I think size-wise, we're getting close to getting there.
Board Member McCray?
Yeah, Director Simon, in regards to Standing Ovation, did anybody check out any events that they did prior to, after they submitted this contract?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Dania Beach Arts and Seafood Celebration, Sunfest, Scripps Florida Institute, FPL's events, and Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. Okay. Okay.
So they, it seems like they are a local firm.
Okay, as long as they're, we have something to say that they're good. Okay.
They are, and they work under the, they work under the supervision of CRA staff. I mean, Mercedes he is not on his own managing this event as a event company. He is working for us to assist us in areas that we are down in staff clearly, in areas of expertise that we would just not have the time to even put into it at this point, rather than hiring new staff, to do that, or labor that wouldn't know what they're doing. So it's a great opportunity.
Okay, next question, since you
Yes,
said
sir.
that has he spoken with Mercedes? I'm just saying, are they on board?
Yes, we've had several meetings already without a contract to get ahead of the game.
Appreciate it. Offer motion to approve.
Before we,
Yep.
I
You
just
want to
want
speak
to
for the
mention,
discussion?
the 20,000 listed here, this is in addition to the 36,000 that we would be paying them for on-site staff? On the agenda cover page, it says the additional cost of on-site staffing would add approximately 20,000 to the proposed rate.
That was for the other respondent, the other company.
The 36,000 is flat,
Yes.
and we don't have any other outside expenses other than just running the event.
No.
Yes.
Yes, we do have outside expenses? No, we don't. That was my understanding.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Does someone want to remove item
moved.
B
So
from the
moved.
table? All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Remove from the table. Discussion?
Board,
My input right now is that even though this property is somewhat blighted in the community, the fact of the $166,000 or whatever money it would cost kind of is not in our budget. We would rather spend it elsewhere. And so even though it is something that is needed within the heart of Boynton Beach, I feel that it would be better if we put the money into the neighborhood improvement program.
This was a property that Board Member Romulus said that it was a duplex that she did not want to see families displaced.
Correct.
Okay.
these are properties across on Northeast First Street that, if you will, are across the street from the Cottage District site area. There's 5 or 6 rentals that are absentee landlord type rentals that would, if we were able to acquire them in a different circumstance, it would be, I think, a great benefit to the future project. But in looking at the cost that it would take to convert that into a single-family residence or a continue to rent it, as was suggested by the board chair, if we were to purchase it rather than tear it down, I think that the costs just outweigh the benefit at this point. There are other things that we need to be working with, and our staff is working with our community standards department on ways that we can try to change those visual conditions and living conditions in those particular and other duplexes throughout. But to really sell the Cottage District, and I think the proximity to Town Square project, we really need to get a handle on some of these items that we can through community standards.
Okay.
So I agree with you.
All right. So it's going. Did anyone want to put a motion, or is it going to die from the
Motion not to purchase.
Okay. Second.
I'm going to second it, but it just died if we didn't say anything. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's kill it.
All right. Well, it's been seconded, so I got to call it now.
Yeah.
All those in favor to terminate, say
Aye.
so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Purchase and sales agreement is terminated. The item C, consideration of letter of intent with Habitat for Humanity of South Palm Beach for a CRA-owned property located 117 West MLK Jr. Boulevard.
CRA Board, we've received on May 18th a letter of intent to purchase from Habitat for Humanity for a CRA-owned lot within the Model Block project area at 117 Northwest 10th Avenue. As has been done in other Model Block houses, Habitat submitted a letter of intent for 2 other lots. The remaining 4 lots where new houses are that you've attended, ribbon cuttings were done by the CDC. In this particular case, I've talked to CRA Legal, and when we were speaking about RFPs or letters of intent, I think until we come up with again, a policy back to you that in this particular case, given the circumstances and experiences we've had with a single-family infill with both the CDC and Habitat, I think in this case, I would not recommend doing an RFP and have you entertain this letter of intent. And if you so choose to do that, we would do you'd also want to approve the issuance of a public notice to dispose, and at the price that they are willing to, you'd be contemplating giving it to them, we would also need to take that to the City Commission for their approval to sell the property at less than fair market value.
And so this is the first residential property west of Seacrest on the north side next to the Marantha Haitian Evangelical Baptist Church.
Yes, sir, in between the church and the multifamily complex owned by DJV. As far as a single-family residence, it's a tough spot for a new family to move in, which, again, I think supports our efforts to try to work with landlords and multifamily absentee landlords to really kind of put some effort into their complexes to upgrade them and to keep them well managed and use code compliance to help us do that.
What are they asking for it?
They are seeking to have you give them the land at $10 as your contribution for the affordability of the property.
And there's currently no structure there.
There's currently no structure there. The CRA purchased the property, did the demolition, and it is essentially prepared for construction. What we would have them do is bring back a image of the house, if you would like, with the purchase and development agreement, so you could see the structure that's going to be built there, the elevations. It would be exactly the same as what you see on the model block now. These other properties that they built, same criteria, accents, roof.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Discussion?
Yep.
Can we change the amount?
We
Would the
can
board-
say,
would the
yeah, if
board
you
be
want
willing
to ask
put a
money
different
for
amount in there?
Habitat for Humanity.
What would happen is, in the case of the CDC or Habitat, or where we are trying to develop a affordable product, if the land costs aren't at the level in which are generally requested, that cost is then passed on to the home buyer, which starts to put them in a place where they will need a down payment assistance. So kind of in lieu of down payment assistance or back-end financing, the cost of the land is what keeps that property in the affordable range. So if that helps with your decision.
I'm looking at the property appraisers, and they say the land value is $12,613. The CRA bought it in January of 2016 for $109,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big hit for the CRA. And
If you'd like to ask the appraised
Oh, that was
value,
before I got
talk to-
elected. Okay. So I was wondering. I don't remember doing
Well,
that.
it's part of the elimination of slum and blight, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And so the question is that if we don't sell it to Habitat, it's unlikely that there is going to be another developer that would like it and have it to the affordable. The whole point is that it is a big loss. I'd like to see if they're willing to put $1,000, a nominal fee.
I can discuss that with them, or we could do an RFP if you want and see if there's a single, a housing developer or the CDC that would be equally interested.
The way the location of the property is not ideally because of its location to the multifamily unit next to it. I would just say for the offer to see if Habitat for Humanity is willing to give the CRA an extra $1,000 because of all the properties that we have given to them.
Okay.
And because of what our future costs are that we would want to, put that money towards the Sarah Sims, or, any money that they do give us is going into the community. But if not, I still would sell it to them for $10.
Board Chair, I know where you're coming from, and not that $1,000 is, it's a lot of money, $1,000, obviously, but we've worked with the Habitat Humanity, and they do a great job. And there's probably no one else that's really going to be interested in this site.
No.
And I think for $1,000, I think we just continue on the path that we've been with them, particularly on this particular property.
You're right. I'm going to withdraw my request because there are other more valuable properties to ask for $1,000 or something else nominal.
Right, and it's not that I disagree with that. I absolutely do commend all the work that the Habitat for Humanity has done. It just hurts to just walk away from $109,000. That's all I'm saying, And these decisions were made prior to some of us sitting here, and times have changed, and so I'm hoping that we as a board take into consideration some of the prices that we pay, and again, that's why I'm kind of glad the property prior to this also just we let that go, because when we're paying all this money for these properties and then turning them over and letting them go, it's again not financially smart.
Let me ask the question, by us turning the property over, getting a home there, do they pay taxes on this property?
Yes, they do.
Thank you, we get money, okay.
Yep. We, because the way it works is Habitat will own the land and put it into a land trust, so we will get the taxable value of the improvement. It has been motioned. Is there a second? For $10. It has a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously.
Board, would you also include a motion to issue the notice to dispose?
Yes, please.
My motion, I will. Go ahead.
Thank
Is
you.
there a second to dispose?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're on to discussion of Sarah Sims Park Master Plan Design and Conceptual Housing Component. Michael, would you like to let us know how the meeting went?
Yes. The meeting at Carolyn Sims Center to discuss, on May 31st, to discuss the existing master plan design, which is in the back of the room now. We have a board that we discussed potentially the housing element, if that was something supported by the community or not. It was really an information gathering meeting. We had an opportunity to have some, I think, very open and frank dialogue from the community to the CRA and city staff that were in attendance. From that meeting, as I mentioned during the budget, I picked up that the community and the responses that we got in the survey that we let out, which is also on the back table, there is not a majority of support to add housing to that park at this point, which we talked about earlier. The same was true at the CRAB meeting. I don't know if it's an opportunity for you to gather input. That was part of the intent, I think, of this item, was to solicit another, evening of finding out what the community felt like this park meant to them and improvements they'd like to see. And we would also be bringing it to the Parks and Recreation Board to give another opportunity for input from the public and have the board of the city weigh in on their thoughts on the park as well. Having said that, we're going to continue on our path for input, and I think from the board's movement on the budget, I believe that there's support to do a park improvement project of at least $1 million or plus. So I think I need your direction on whether you want to continue forward into a master plan design charrette type of an event, or if you want to work through continuing to gather input from the community on what they'd like to see.
My take is, first of all, I don't see any point us continuing with the community. We have met, we have spoken, we said what we don't want, and we said we want any houses, well, we need to go to design. We said after this, we would go and turn it over to Parks and Recs and see what they come up with, and then after that, we can have a charrette to meet back with the community. But the community has already spoken and said, this is what we want, and we need to move forward.
The issue I have is that, I was unable to, voice my opinion why, I requested that the housing option be there because it, would violate the sunshine because we were there and we are going to be voting on this. I'd like to have that opportunity because what you said is we're not putting any fixed structures on the western half of 2.5 acres. So I believe that I am for landscaping it and making it beautiful. I looked on what it is moving forward regarding the draft park improvement list.
Yes.
And so I would like to go out and speak with the community to explain the reason why I wanted the additional housing there facing the park. I feel that it would add to the community and create more revenue for the city to help pay for future funds, future improvements to the park. One of the things that I did notice was the Wi-Fi. I feel that is an important feature that is part of the other suggestions that I think we can, I'd like to see if the board is also
Station.
interested in putting that into the draft park proposal.
Charging
dealing
stations
with-
were also
To
mentioned.
do in the pavilion, to have a Wi-Fi charging station.
Let me make another, you finish?
Yep.
Okay, let me make another comment. I don't see any point going back out with the community when we met, although you was there and you could not say anything. Commissioner Casella was there, could not say anything. I was there and we could not say anything. And
Yeah.
they voiced their opinion. They don't want any homes over there. This is what we're saying. And I'm just saying, why can't we listen to the voice of the people? We gave them a survey. They wrote everything down. We got it documented. Let's move forward. I'm just saying that by you meeting, I hope you don't think that's going to make them change their mind.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to provide a public input section for this as well? It's up to you.
No, I think we can just move ahead as is. The only thing is that I'd like to add the Wi-Fi and charging station under the draft park improvement list.
No problem.
Michael, is there any plans already drawn up from past charrettes and meetings?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. In the CRA plan, the master plan image that is, again, in the board, it's also in your backup as part of our CRA plan. It was in the 2014 Heart of Boynton plan that then converted over into the 2016 CRA development plan. And essentially, as we talked about earlier, the plan, if you look at it, has all of the same components of what is in the park now. There's an expansion of the cemetery, which was also contemplated, but pavilion, basketball courts, handball, green grass, trees, lighting, fencing, the same type of thing that you would see of the same quality in other parks throughout the city. I think it was generally felt that was the criteria missing, or that was the element missing.
Michael, at the meeting, I picked up on a few things there in
Yes, sir.
Water features park. Now, we've only got 1 point. I think that we've got to be transparent to the community that this is not going to happen at this time with just 1.3 million. And I think that's got to be said and be out there up front.
I agree. And I don't know that there was consensus if that was something that I would say was supported by the majority of those that were there. And I think it does add cost and design cost as well as construction cost. And having the Carolyn Sims Center. with
I
the
just want to
pool
be
there, I
clear
think
to the
it's
community
fine.
what they're going to get for the
I
1.3
agree.
million.
So I'll go through that list if you'd like. That way we can have it on the record. Would that make sense, I think?
Yep.
So with the $767,000 that the city would be matching and funding for us, we would be talking about park fences, grass irrigation upgrade, the parking lot resurfacing and re-elevation, all of the ADA requirements that are currently not in the park. Again, resodding the entire park, that's a $200,000 item, $300,000 for fences, $150,000 for irrigation. It's about a 7.5 acre site. I mean, this is a very large park. Walkways, again, park lighting, about $200,000. A new restroom facility at $150,000. These are coming from Colin Groff at the city, so I asked him to be as legitimate with these costs and with what we could get done as we can because we are representing that to the public. I didn't want anything that was too pie in the sky. Again, irrigation and a feature at MLK Junior Boulevard and Seacrest, so an enhanced feature as an entrance to the park. That would be what we can get for the $1.3 million.
Michael, let me ask you this. After this beautification process and $1.3 million, okay, some of the comments were out there, the litter, the broken glass and handball courts. How do we stop that from happening after we put $1.3 million into the park? How are we going to handle the issues or the problems that seem to thrive down there?
Well, one of the things that I would like to suggest, because the community has been very vocal that they want to be involved and engaged and in partnership with us and the city and their neighbors and really just a completely involved community. they all seemed at the meeting to support that wasn't something they wanted to see in their park anymore. There's been some ATV issues, so they all wanted fencing. The community that, again, spoke in the meeting and the crab meeting voiced concerns for activities that were illegal or undesirable, so they couldn't take their kids. There was a part in the neighborhood policing program meeting in March. There was a sense that I'm getting that the community would like to take the park back a little bit. So what I would be looking for as a third partner to our 600 and the city's 760 is a commitment from the community in support of that to help us in kind of policing that and assisting us in supporting if there's regulations that we need to implement, or cleanup days, or just kind of taking a little bit of ownership. And I think that's something that Board Member McCrae has been saying for quite a while, that what is there to own right now? I mean, it's nothing that you would really feel prideful in owning. So I think if we showed that community that's the impression that I got. That's what I'd be asking as the director from them, to be willing to partner and help us show you. Maybe there's a Boy Scout cleanup day. Maybe there's community service hours that they can put together as a community. This is about my only suggestion, other than maintenance and devoting dollars for that.
Let me jump in and say something. You know, with a city of this magnitude, city of Boynton, you know, I don't know why we keep skirting around and saying what we really need for this city is a park ranger that will go around and make sure parks are open and closed properly. And if there's any problems, then they can notify the city. I'm just saying we need to invest, you know, in employees who could go and help us. I'm just saying, but the community is saying, if you build it, we'll take care of it. This is what we're saying. You have to trust us. We're trusting you all.
All right.
You have somebody want to speak?
All right. Please limit it to 3-minute conversation. State your name and address for the record.
Urban Sinais, 223 Northeast 12th Avenue. Just want to point out, just to get educated myself, the penny sales tax, which is for existing infrastructure, including parks, does that play a role in helping to fund this park?
Yes, the city's $700,000.
That's where that's going to come from.
Part of that comes from there. The city gets $4 million each year, so part of that funding is coming from that for the capital improvements.
Awesome. Also, just being in the community, stuff like that. Just want to add, like, in the breakdown of what I've heard, some of the expenses will be on. I'm hearing a lot of fencing, a lot of grass, and first of all, it's awesome. Like, the community definitely wants something there, but really, what we're talking about is things that will engage the community. Things like maybe a baseball park, a water feature is something that the community can use, something that brings in some type of culture, some type of excitement to the park. And yes, we know that in the heart of Boynton, yes, there's some activities as far as family conversations, as far as things that you know, what you guys were talking about, policing, stuff like that. I mean, the community can take care of its own. We can take care of those type of things, but we're looking forward to having a park, something that we can be proud of, and something that engages the community. Once again, we just want opportunities to and we go through this, but like not always addressing behaviors of folks, but talking about how we can actually fix a structure, provide things that bring excitement, bring culture, bring families together. So this is a great opportunity to do that. So I just want you guys, just in that budget, not just fencing, not just grass, but what can we put there that isn't there? A baseball diamond, water park, something that's cool, that'll bring people out. I'm not saying those have to be the exact things, but just to put you in that frame of mind. Thank you.
God bless you all. And Minister Bernard Wright, 713 Northwest 2nd Street. I live about a stone throw away from Sarah Sims Park. And I just like to say that, you know, beautification will soothe the sore, but it don't help the children. It doesn't engage the children. We can have all the pretty grass you want and all the fences you want, but that's not going to do it. We're talking about something that's going to, you know, engage those children, keep them off the street. Water park, like you say, a baseball park. We really need that back. Y'all took that from us. That means you really interfere with our culture. We want to restore this thing. It's about a prophetic spirit of a better Boynton. Better Boynton means that which interests the people. So I live there. I know who patronizes the place. I'm the one to make sure that Jeff Livergood, by the grace of God, thank God for him, does the right things there and keeping it clean. But at any rate, we need some 1.7 million for grass and fences. No, that's out. I mean, we need to beautify it, no doubt about that. But let's add some stuff. Let's put baseball diamond in there. Let's get, like you suggested, let's get the leaders out there, the people who have an interest, who does patronize, and not people from outside want to have a 2-cent in and just to have something to say. And let's locate where we would like to have this and where we would like to have that. And I mean, we will get somewhere that way. What do you think?
Regarding the baseball diamond, the one just north of Galaxy is owned by the city.
That's not a neighborhood park. We've always, all our life, had a neighborhood baseball diamond, softball diamond that,
It's a half a mile away.
Let me tell you something.
So,
I played football there for Boynton Beach Junior High before it was Galaxy. And I'm going to tell you something. We do not go down there in great numbers. Nobody wants to walk. Some people have a problem with transportation. It's not in the neighborhood where historically we had a baseball diamond, a softball diamond, engage the children, and it gives us an opportunity to go to the pros and a whole lot of other things athletically. But let's just say, hey, man, down there is not the neighborhood of Boynton Beach, where you have done what you have done, and that is cut our culture. You understand?
I understand this, but I'm going to interrupt you.
Well,
in the sense is that a half a mile, if you can't walk that, then you're really not playing baseball.
Well, you're talking about over in the white neighborhood. We're talking about the black neighborhood now, so we're going to get real talk with this.
This is still in the northwest.
Okay. Glory to the living God. Don't duck the situation. We're talking about the neighborhood of Boynton Beach, resurrected Boynton, the heart of Boynton now, where you took this baseball diamond from us. And why is the problem putting it back?
I'm just
you think
saying
all of us that like to bounce rubber balls?
There. It is there.
Get real, man. Mayor, get real.
Commissioner McCray.
Yeah, let me go ahead and say something. We had a baseball diamond over at Sarah Sims Field, and I'm just saying if we put one back there, then that probably should be the spot that we look at because
we'll go back to Cali, no matter.
Let's get one. We do have the property, we do have the field there and everything, and as far as putting the water thing out there right now, that wouldn't be a good thing because I'm just saying what we need to do is focus more on John Denson Pool, getting more of our kids out there learning how to swim and making it be most cost affordable that they can go in and swim, because I'm just saying this is what we're taking away from their culture when we tell them that you got to give $1 to do this and $1 to do that. I'm just saying, we're pricing them out. If a child want to swim, I feel like they should be able to swim. It's a neighborhood pool.
And I understand that quite well, but let me just say this for the records, and that is y'all misspent $30,000 on steel. Children don't go out there to just own that steel. It's hot. You misspent $30,000 because you are making a determination on what our children will love to engage in over there in the heart of Boynton Beach. You just did it again. You spent $30,000 for red, yellow, and blue iron that nobody even participate on. God bless y'all.
Make this quick because it is late. I want to thank the commission for the $600,000 that you guys matched, first of all, for the park.
State your name and address for the record.
Sorry. Brittany Galley. Address is 306 Northeast 1st Avenue, just down the street, Boynton Beach, 33435. But anyways, sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's a little late. Thank you guys again for the matching of the contribution. I just wanted to state that to the director's point about the businesses in the community coming together to actually help you guys with that. We're going to donate. We're actually working with the assistant director now as far as a technology vendor for off-duty police and security guards, maintenance facilities, and janitorial services for the city. We'd like to donate on behalf of my company the IT services for that maintenance, for any security, maintenance, or janitorial to use.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Director Simon, you have her information?
I'm not letting her leave.
Okay. So
maybe Teresa or somebody can go get that for us right now.
Don't say no to free money.
Yeah, thank you. All right, seeing no more public comments, is everyone on the board okay with the draft?
Let it go back down to
Draft park improvement list.
Yeah.
What I would certainly, we would want to, the city and I would want to bring this back to you so that you can see the detail a little bit finer on what's going to be done, what parking spaces we're talking about, all that. I would like to bring that back. Do you still want us to go forward with the presentation to the Parks and Recreation Board on our thoughts in July?
That would be fine because that's their service that they give Parks and Recs. Let it go before them because it's still going to have to come back to us to see what they might have find an idea, something that we did not find. I'm in favor of it.
All right.
I'm also in favor of just, creating amenities that are in the interest of the community in terms of what they're looking for. So if that's the water feature, or if that's, baseball diamond, because if we're going to redo this park, then let's do it in a way that they're happy with. So I was not opposed to creating housing in order to decrease the footprint of the park, to not have to spend so much money to maintain it. But if that's not in the will of the public, then I'd rather still put something that they're in favor of. So if that's the way that we want to go with it, then I'm willing to entertain that.
I think that the city, being the owner of the park, I think the city commission probably is going to want to weigh in with city staff on their thoughts with regard to the cemetery. Part of this master plan discussed the existing cemetery improvements and/or expanding that cemetery. That's not something the CRA obviously would be managing or responsible for, or even initiating. So I think by getting it to the Parks and Recreation Board and maybe putting it up through city staff to the commission, there may be some, I think there's input that we need on that element as well.
So to be clear, would we be expanding that cemetery west or south?
No, period.
None.
None. And let me say why, because I'm just saying, what it is, we have perpetual care. Perpetual care is where we pay money in to be buried over there, and this money is like in a land and like in a bank, and they need to use the money to beautify that cemetery over there. They have money, they need to cut it more, and perhaps they give irrigation there and everything. They was talking about putting a mausoleum there, and I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat it, but Afro-Americans saying that they do not want to be buried out there. The only somebody I heard say they want to be buried out there is Minister Bernard Wright. Thank you.
Right. Again, the reason I ask is, if all these costs that we're going to be putting, I want to know what it will look like in the future. So, that cemetery out there currently as it stands, if you pass by, you might not even realize that it's a cemetery because of the poor health and poor condition that it's in. So again, if we're spending 1.3 or however many millions of dollars that we're going to spend, I want to make sure that we have a plan that's both satisfactory to the community, that's going to be benefiting, and two, that we can not have, we can be able to decrease how much we keep spending to maintain and upkeep this park by having the community basically be invested and wanting to partner up with us to keep it in good shape and good health.
And the cemetery already have money out there, Board Member Romulus, for the city to go out and do what they're supposed to. If they take care of the people that's buried out there like they're supposed to, then when you pass by, it will look like a cemetery. And this is all I need to keep saying is that the city needs to step up to the plate. They're contracting out with contractors. The contractors are not doing a good job, and this is all I need to say.
Well,
I can ask, I'm sorry.
Sorry, if that can be a discussion that we can bring up on the city side then to determine the people that are supposed to be in charge of caring for this, because that cemetery is it's terrible in the condition that it's in currently.
To Board Member McCrae. Mac, do you know the last time someone was actually buried there?
Yes, Mr. Charlie Light was the last somebody was buried there, and I think one of his relatives was out there. I think it was last year. It was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, we had
Just
somebody
last year.
buried out there.
That's great.
Yeah. And his wife says she's going to be buried out there, so that takes care of that. Okay. So she said that she wanted to be passable because they had to go out and do some renovations for ADA and all that other stuff out there. So they did do some improvements, but not enough.
That being said, I believe we have a duty and an obligation to these individuals who are buried, who have their family members buried there, to treat it in a better condition. So, this money that's being allocated, it needs to put this park in a position to actually allow for the community to be proud of what's there, one, and two, we need to make sure that, again, once we spend this money and we put it out there, we have a partnership between the city, the CRA, and the community to keep it at that certain level of, at that condition, basically.
And let me just say this for the record. Sarah Sims Park was named after Mother Sarah Sims, who was responsible for starting the St. John Missionary Baptist Church. So even with that name, we need to step up to the plate and even do more. She was a pioneer who saw the future of the city of Boynton enough that she wanted to start a church. This church is still viable, and I'm just saying that's who the park was named after. She was the first person buried out there. So if nothing else, we need to at least take care of her. Thank you.
Thank you for the history lesson.
Thank you. Michael, do you need a motion?
No, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none. Moving on to item E, consideration of acquisition of the Boynton Women's Club located at 1010 South Federal Highway. Michael.
Yes, Board. The item before you is for a solicitation by the Boynton Beach Women's Club to the CRA to consider acquisition of this property and become under the ownership of the CRA for operation as it is currently operated, for the longevity of the history of this building, and really, I think, to keep it in perpetuity. Their feeling is that by selling it to the city or the CRA in this case, I think it certainly meets many of the goals, if not all, of the plan, the CRA plan for the Federal Highway Corridor and for downtown with the historic preservation. This is a original Addison Meisner building. All of the detail that these women who so love this building have provided you with regard to Major Nathan S. Boynton and the building's age into the 1920s, 1932, 25. I mean, these are things I think culturally that are often brought to CRAs throughout the state and other agencies like ours throughout the country. This is an opportunity that we have to step up and do that if you so desire. They're asking for an acquisition price of $110,000. The proceeds of the sale would be going into a trust under the name of Major Nathan S. Boynton to contribute to scholarships and be kind of preserved in memory of his name as well. So we have some work to do in management. The women have definitely offered to assist us in their volunteer efforts to continue. This is a building that is already renting in the neighborhood of almost $60,000 a year in events. I think that's with a very dedicated and loving volunteer group, but I think that they've all been very supportive of the idea that if someone were able to put a full-time energy and effort and the marketing and the different things that I think that they are ready to turn over to someone that can provide, that we can take this to another level of income. It will not be a get-rich type of an opportunity for the CRA. That's not why we buy things like this. It's not why the Children's Schoolhouse Museum is there. It's not why we're looking to do the old high school. So what's before you is to contemplate that acquisition and management and ownership of the building. I've set aside in the budget or suggested setting aside some money to go into a matching grant for the special category grant with the Historic Preservation Trust within the state of Florida. That's something that we are doing for the old high school as part of the Town Square project. I would suggest that we go for that application next year with the help of Warren Adams and the city as the historic preservationist. I just think this is a great opportunity. I'm not intimidated, excited about it. Between Town Square and this, I think there's some really great things happening, and I'm excited. I'm tired, but I'm excited.
I think, Mike, I had a fundraiser down here. I first ran for it. It's a beautiful, beautiful building inside, and the history behind it is something else. And I thank the ladies for making this generous offer to us. And this is really a no-brainer for the CRA. This is one of our best buys that we could since I've been up here. So I'm all for it. And again, I thank you, ladies.
Director Simon, let me ask you a question. How much money have we given them, like for the refurbishment of the building, et cetera?
To about $90,000 in two grants.
Coming down.
Here they come.
Hold on.
$50,000 from the CRA to match an award from a $140,000 grant from the state. And we also did a commercial facade grant with them for a $15,000 grant that they spent $30,000 and got a match of our funding. So in total, to answer your question, $65,000 over the course of several years, since 2014 in assistance. And they were able to get grant funding from the state because of those matches of $140,000 and then $10,000 of their own funds to do that work that was just done. There's still work to be done, and I think that's why they're in a position where we need to take care of some of that first floor renovation. I would definitely want to use the grant application for that. It's solid. It's there. It's really, there's a lot that can be done. I think there's just so much opportunity and history there that we just are kind of tapping into that. And the old high school. I think this is a great opportunity too, if that's renovated, to really just get that thing active, and I think the CRA can play a big role in that as well.
Did you want to say the?
No, I was just going to agree with what Michael just said.
Okay.
And you still need to state your name for the record.
Pardon?
Your name for the record?
Oh, Pat Waldron.
And your address?
I live in Quail Run.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my whole take is, since we already have invested money into this building, and I don't want the building to get like that old high school over there, and I'm just saying, for what you all said that you want us to pay you for it, it is an investment. It's a Meisner building, one that, sells way more than what you all are asking us to pay for it. And although it might need some work, but I'm still appreciative that y'all wanted to keep it here in Boynton. We don't want to tear it down. Thank you.
The building belongs with the city.
Thank you.
Because of its history.
All right, and is there any deed restrictions so that it doesn't go anywhere else?
There are some deed restrictions. It always has to remain a memorial to Major Boynton.
The only suggestion is that the city can't sell it to someone else without the right of refusal or first right of refusal. Is that something that we can do, Tara? So that, my whole thing is that we're only here for a few years, and that another future board may decide to sell it. And that's kind of where I just want to make sure that we get something in the deed that prevents.
I'm sorry. I thought you were asking if there was something already, and I wasn't.
No.
Okay,
I just
we want to put something in there.
I want to make
Yes,
sure
sir.
that there's something in there that prevents the future sale of this property away from the city or the CRA.
So tonight you'd
Does
be
that sound
approving.
good too?
Good.
Okay. But yes, I thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to grow this the Boynton Women's Club into a 21st century event with keeping in mind of its heritage.
We're very pleased, and we thank all of you because, like I said, the building belongs to the city. And I'm sure in future years you will find a very useful something useful for the building, other than just renting it out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for being caretakers of the history.
Yes,
Boy,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How many members do you all have in the women's club?
75.
Wow.
And
Active.
growing.
They have asked
No,
that
they're not all active.
Okay.
That's the problem. For the record, I'm Michelle Walter, president. I live in Quail Ridge.
Let me just ask a few questions. Michael, I'm looking at, is this the appraisal here from Anderson and Carr?
Ma'am.
And so basically the building and the property is valued at 2.4 million? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and tonight we're going to be purchasing it for 110,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so see, that I'm okay with.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Did I do good there, right?
So,
Vice Chair. Yeah, I'm excited. I think that it's important to try to balance, the new development with preservation of old buildings, and in lieu especially of that particular area with new buildings going up and how contentious they were. I love the opportunity to save something historic.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
second?
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously.
Can I just
Thank you
clarify
very
if that
much.
motion included the deed restriction? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.